Chapter 712, The Continuation of Explosive Weapon Style, 2, When Zhuemo opened his eyes, he jumped in fright at the scene in front of him. The MO weapon pool was now a water pillar that was hundreds of zhang tall like a twister. The pillar of water was spinning rapidly, ice and frigid air spreading outwards. The ground around the MO weapon pool was covered in a thick layer of ice. Within the pillar of water, 10 lights of different colors floated up and down like 10 fairies. When he looked, Zhuemo was astounded. This water pillar was formed from hundreds of thousands of tiny water currents. These currents contained great power, and when they gathered together like now, they were like hundreds of thousands of little ice flies that tightly swarmed around the 10 balls of light and ground against them. The 10 MO weapon rudiments were completely different than before Zhuemo had entered his meditation. What was most evident was that they had shrunk by about 1/3 their size, and the light around them had become purer. It was clear that their quality had increased. Zhuemo had used the cold flows in the underground Nether River to refine the MO weapon rudiments, but he hadn't expected that refining the 10 MO weapon rudiments in one MO weapon pool would create such a disturbance. He focused on the 10 MO weapon rudiments. It was the first time he had encountered such an astounding scene, and he didn't dare to be inattentive at all. When the light from the 10 balls within the pillar of water started to turn softer, Zhuemo knew that it was almost time. The impurities in the MO weapon rudiments were almost all cleaned out, and so the MO weapon rudiments' response to the icy currents were gradually getting weaker. He glanced away from the water pillar, and then Zhuemo flashed to appear outside the MO weapon pool. Have the materials been prepared? Coming out of the MO weapon pool, he found the chaotic scene outside and was startled. But he quickly understood what had happened. He looked towards the underground Nether River. As he expected, the water height of the underground Nether River was dozens of zhang lower than when he entered. The 10 MO weapon rudiments had taken almost all of the power of the underground Nether River. It was not strange for such a disturbance to occur. But he didn't have the time to attend to that. All of his attention was on the 10 MO weapon rudiments he was crafting. The 10 MO weapon rudiments had taken in the great majority of the underground Nether River's power, and they were starting to take form. If he could succeed, the level of these 10 MO weapons would reach an astounding level. But if he wasn't careful, all of his work would be for nothing, and these 10 MO weapons would be ruined. Even Zhuemo didn't dare to slack off at this time. When Bean Sprout suddenly heard Zhuemo's voice, he shook and jumped up from the ground. They have been prepared. When Zhuemo finished asking, he had noticed the mountain of materials piled up, and those extra materials, one's worth entire cities as well. He was slightly surprised, but at such an urgent time, he did not inquire further. His figure flashed, and then he appeared around the pile of materials. In a blink, the small mountain disappeared, and so did Zhuemo. Many people had seen Zhuemo's sudden appearance. Their minds moved, and then they looked at the guards around the MO weapon pool. None of them had moved. Then they looked at the chaotic passageway. Some people's courage momentarily grew, but they quickly regained their senses. The chaotic situation was lessened slightly. Zhuemo's appearance eased much of Bean Sprout's worries. He was full of awe toward Zhuemo. As expected of Grandmaster, he wouldn't lose his composure even if the mountains were crashing down on top of them. Grandmaster once again went back to his MO weapon forging. Just this mentality far surpassed many MO weapon masters. This was probably the reason that Grandmaster was able to become a Grandmaster. Bean Sprout motivated himself inside. In comparison, the guards from Rare Artifacts Hall changed expression minutely, especially the more powerful guard captains. They all had hints of shock in their eyes. Xiao Yunhai had appeared without warning, and none of them had even detected it. Also, none of them had been able to lock onto the disappearance of that pile of materials and the departure of Xiao Yunhai. The words floated unconsciously into everyone's mind: unfathomable power. These guards were a close part of Rare Artifacts Hall, and some had even been raised by Rare Artifacts Hall. Their loyalty to Rare Artifacts Hall was unquestionable. Many of them had dissenting opinions when Rare Artifact Hall's higher-ups had been so flamboyant, especially as the MO weapon masters had continued to leave. This had increased their worries. But their loyalty towards Rare Artifacts Hall meant that they faithfully completed the orders, even ones that they did not agree with. Just like everyone else, they were worried that if Xiao Yunhai failed in such a public way, then Rare Artifacts Hall would become the biggest joke. All of their impressions of Xiao Yunhai were from the mirages and the rumors. Yet when they truly faced Xiao Yunhai's cool gaze and the almost tangible pressure he gave off caused them to stop breathing. Shocked, their mood became much better. Such a person would not just be a boaster. So strong. A guard of Rare Artifacts Hall couldn't help but gasp in a low voice. Every person around him had shocked expressions. The guard captains exchanged looks and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The power that Sui Mo showed far surpassed their imaginations. Was this guy really a MO weapon master? Some imperceptible hums sounded among the chaotic crowds. Qin Ming's gaze focused slightly as he said in a surprised voice, "I can't seem to get the exact measure of this Xiao Yunhai's strength." Beside him, Zhong Wentian and Tang Chen's expression were also slightly grave. Qin Ming, a marshal, couldn't see the scope of the other's power. This itself was a problem. Xiao Yunhai was not simple. Zhong Wentian suddenly closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened them suddenly. The underground Nether River. The other two heard this, and they turned to look at the underground Nether River. Surprise rose in the eyes of the duo. The underground Nether River that was usually vast was now so depleted of water that the river floor could be seen. "This is..." Tang Chen murmured. Buzhou City was his territory, and he was extremely familiar with the underground Nether River. The water was always plentiful, and there had never been a situation where the water level would drop. Earth MO weapon. Tang Chen seemed to think of something, and his pupils contracted as he gasped. Qin Ming and Zhong Wentian's bodies shook slightly and expressions of disbelief rose onto their faces. Such a powerful Xiao Yunhai. Such terrifying vibrations. Feng Xingzi stood high up on a protruding rock, as he looked down. His expression changed. Ji Liyu was deeply astounded by the scene in front of her. She had seen the enormous change in the underground Nether River just now. The underground Nether River that was dozens of li wide was like a silent beast. When it moved, you would be able to feel its terrifying power. It may not be Xiao Yunhai. Ji Liu couldn't help but argue. She really lacked any good feelings about that person. "I feel its presence." Feng Xinz did not turn his face and said coolly. "What presence?" Ji Liu stilled. "The presence of a powerful MO weapon. It is taking form." Eyes closed, Feng Xinz seemed to be speaking to himself. He was not as calm inside as he appeared. Xiao Yunhai had given him too many surprises. Opening his eyes, his gaze suddenly swept across Qing Huashui outside the MO weapon pool with a nervous expression. A thoughtful smile came onto his lips. It was time for Darren to have a discussion with the Blue Flower family. Yet what flashed through his mind was Xiao Yunhai's ghostly way of movement. At a shaded spot high up beside the underground Nether River, the youth raised his head and stopped eating the blood grapes. He said thoughtfully, "Now I seem to believe somewhat that this person can forge a Sky Missouri weapon. You believe even more that he is the crux for finding Xiao Mo Gu." A wizened voice suddenly came. It was that old man dressed in rags. The youth seemed to have known the old man was there already. He was not surprised and giggled, "Yes, if he can forge Sky Missouri weapons, he can repair them. However, there are many people targeting him." The old man grinned, revealing his yellowed teeth with missing gaps. "I don't know about the future, but right now, the Mo Shen Temple possesses the strongest Shen power," the youth said casually. Then his tone changed, and he said mirthfully, "Of course, that is except for you, elder. This old man can't deal with the three of you." The old man waved his hand. "However, Kuan Luan and Tian Huan have found some ways. With their foundation, it would be fast for them to catch up. You have to be careful," the youth said with an easy expression. "It is not so easy, we worked for many generations and have just reached the doorway. There are still many shortcomings with our method. Kuan Luan, Tian Huan, the others, they will quickly find, tsk, that it is not so easy." "That's true," the old man nodded when he heard this and said. The youth's tone changed. "Of course, there are exceptions, like Xiao Mo Gu. This guy is a Shen power cultivation genius. They will quickly find Xiao Mo Gu's value. But at that time, I want to see how much regret they feel, Xiao Mo Gu." An imperceptible light flashed through the old man's eyes. "How so?" "There are no detrimental effects. We found that this guy doesn't just progress rapidly, there are no side effects." The youth put down the blood grapes again, tilted his head, and said gravely. "If Elder works with us, we can share everything. No side effects." "Really?" The old man had an expression of disbelief. "When Xiao Mo Gu next appears, Elder, you will know." The youth laughed and then said pointedly, "For Xiao Mo Gu, the Mo Shen Temple is willing to pay everything. While this old man was there last time, you didn't have such determination last time." The old man was puzzled. The youth spread his hands. "At that time, we still hadn't discovered fine Xiao Mo Gu's benefit." Suddenly, the two seemed to detect something at the same time. They stopped their discussion and looked at the Mo weapon pool. The youth instinctively straightened. He held the blood grapes in his hand but forgot to move them to his mouth. He murmured, "It's starting." Chapter 713, The Continuation of the Explosive Weapon Style, 3. When a material was tossed into the pillar of water, it would be ground to powder by the rapidly spinning water pillar and then disappear without a trace. Zhuo Mo's expression was solemn and his gaze was focused. Every material would light up on his hand. This was what would occur after the unique traits of the material were activated. If any other Mo weapon masters were present, they would find to their surprise that even the lowest grade materials would light up dimly on Zhuo Mo's hands. In the common knowledge of Mo weapon masters, materials like this could not light up. The pillar of water was like a roaring dragon that twisted its enormous body and caused people to feel the astounding power it contained. The 10 balls of light floated and sank in the water pillar. But Zhuo Mo's eyes could see countless currents of different colors burrowing into the 10 lights. Every rainbow flow that was hard to see with the naked light was the essence of the material. As they flowed into the balls of light, the lights would become brighter. Zhuo Mo carefully controlled the rhythm of adding materials. The mountain of materials next to him was vanishing at an astounding rate. The light in the pillar of water was more than 10 times as intense as before. Even the Jinji that Zhuo Mo had set up were unable to completely block these lights. Bean Sprout's mouth was gaping as he looked at the Mo weapon pool. 5 colored rays of light were like a beam that stabbed out of the Mo weapon pool. Tsing Liana's reaction was fast. Her expression changed slightly, she grabbed hold of Bean Sprout as she pushed off and then moved 10 zhang back. When the light from the Mo weapon pool touched the ground, a 6 zhang gap was cut like the ground was tofu. Ague, Tsing Liana, and Qinghua Shui had all simultaneously retreated in unspoken agreement. The guards also managed to react. Their expression changed. They hurriedly put the gold boxes on their backs and moved back. Pew pew pew. The Mo weapon pool surroundings were immediately covered in countless gullies. These deep furrows crisscrossed and were heart-stopping to see. The crowd that had seen this immediately became restless. These people looked with shock at these scar-like furrows. These furrows were not of the same length nor the same depth. Some were covered in frost, others with their edges melted smooth as glass, and others seemed to be chewed up by countless mice. All of them were different. What MO weapon would possess so many characteristics? People were both shocked and speculative. The Heaven-tier MO weapon pool that was giving off light at this time seemed to predict the extraordinary nature of the MO weapon that was about to form. Some with nimble thoughts thought of the Sky Snake 10 manifestation pike that Xiao Yunhai had forged previously. Was this a MO weapon similar to that? The MO that were strong were even more shocked and anxious. They could feel the destructive power continued in those seemingly beautiful lights even more clearly. If the light was already also so domineering and powerful, then the MO weapons. They didn't dare to imagine it. The most excited and expectant were the guards from Rare Artifacts Hall. While shocked, all of them had joyful expressions. Based on the noise that was occurring now, the MO weapon that was taking form would definitely be extraordinary. It could possibly be an Earth MO weapon. This Earth MO weapon was for Rare Artifact Hall, who had been forced to the precipice and gamble everything, a sword of light that tore apart the darkness. Tang Chen looked at the light. After his shock, his expression became more complicated. The disturbance and noise in front of him all proved Xiao Yunhai's extraordinariness. If Xiao Yunhai once again made an Earth MO weapon, then his reputation was enough to push him to become one of the top people of the MO territories. Xiao Yunhai's potential surpassed Tang Chen's predictions. He had not hesitated to use a MO weapon Grandmaster as a lure for Xiao Mo Gu. But at this time, he felt a thread of regret. Qin Ming glanced at him and knew what he was thinking. Qin Ming comforted, even if it is an Earth MO weapon, it is not much. Shen power is the most important. Tang Chen became alert. He took a deep breath, nodded and said, "You are right, Shen power is the most important." The hesitation in his eyes was swept away and they became determined again. He was a marshal, and his mind was strong. It could not be so easily swayed. He looked hard at the Heaven-tier MO weapon pool. This Xiao Yunhai was able to cause his mind to waver, his abilities were great. Zhong Wentian suddenly spoke, "Why do I feel it doesn't seem like one MO weapon?" "Not like one MO weapon." Qin Ming stilled. Zhong Wentian looked like a rough man, but in terms of sensitivity, he was the strongest of the three. "Maybe it is another Earth MO weapon like the Sky Snake 10 manifestation pike," Tang Chen said. Zhong Wentian did not speak, but his eyes were filled with shock and puzzlement. This Xiao Yunhai is a genius. The MO Shen Temple youth's gaze changed as he looked closely at the Heaven-tier MO weapon pool in the distance. The old man said dryly, "Now you have a fondness for talent." The old man couldn't resist looking back, and he was shocked inside. The era of Shen power is about to come, that means the era of Shen device is about to also come. The youth lost all of his casualness, and he seemed to murmur to himself. "Don't you feel that this Xiao Yunhai might be able to forge a Shen device?" An imperceptible contempt flashed at the corner of the old man's lips before disappearing. "Shen device? Ha! You are thinking too much. To regain Shen power, just how many years have we spent? The era of Shen power, no one knows when we will enter it. As for Shen devices, who has even seen one before? We haven't ever seen one, how can we make one?" The MO Shen Temple youth immediately recovered his usual cheer. "Then, elder, don't compete with us at that time." The old man gave a cunning smile. "I can't do that. This old man still understands the value of buying low and then selling high later. I will definitely participate. At that time, this old man will give it to whoever gives the highest price." The MO Shen Temple youth felt a headache. This old man wasn't moved by anything, but his origins were mysterious and he was almost ridiculously powerful. But the change in the Heaven-tier MO weapon pool quickly interrupted his random thoughts. When the last material was placed into the pool, the pillar of water suddenly stopped spinning. The 10 balls of light suddenly released blinding light like 10 suns that people could not easily look at. The clothing Mo wore melted like snow under a strong sun. Mo was astounded. He had picked the clothing casually in order to disguise himself, but because he had enough mabe, and he had the label of Grandmaster, the clothing he had picked were all expensive and their defensive abilities were outstanding. Yet the clothing couldn't stop the lights for a moment. It was possible to see the power of these lights. When the lights shone on Mo, he only felt warm and lazy, and nothing else. This was enough for him to marvel, but this time wasn't the time to marvel. Mo refocused, and walked in a circle around the pillar of water to activate the Mo matrices he had already prepared. Dark green Mo matrices lit up around the pool. These Mo matrices were extremely complex. Each Mo matrix was thin and exquisite, complex, and layered as they spread out. The still pillar of water suddenly shook. Immediately after, a roar came from under the ground. At the same time, 6 spots on the ground around the pool collapsed to form 6 holes that were about 6 zhang in diameter. They were so deep the bottom couldn't be seen. The roar had come from the 6 deep holes. The vibrations of the ground grew even stronger as though some monster was about to erupt. Even Mo had a grave expression. The spells on his hands flowed towards the pillar of water. When the light of these spells touched the pillar of water, they would disappear. With every spell, Mo weapon within the pillar of water would gain an extra seal script. Mo's expression was solemn. There were countless tiny currents around him that seemed to form spheres of energy that spun rapidly. At this time, Mo did not hold anything back and all of his powerful presence was exposed. Suddenly, 6 crimson dragons of fire flew into the air from the 6 holes and leapt for the pillar of water. This was the scorching hot lava from deep underground, and it was the fire method of the Shouja that Mo had merged in. 6 Yang Cauldron Method. In this moment, Mo's eyes seemed to light up. The dark gold sun matrices floated into his eyes. There was no emotion on his face as though he was a deity. Without any hesitation, light spun on his hands. The sun Shen power suddenly gathered. His fingers drew in the air, and the gold streaks followed his fingers and stopped in the air. Mo's fingers moved extremely slowly and it looked as though it took great effort. He was like a bow that had been pulled to its limits. A profound and hard to describe ancient seal script slowly formed. This seal script had been recorded in the golden leaf, and Mo was just barely able to use it. When the last stroke formed, the seal script disappeared into a handful of golden lights that entered the pillar of water. When the golden lights entered the pillar of water, it started to spin rapidly, and the suction of the water pillar suddenly increased. Boom boom boom. The underground nether river shook again, and the underwater currents moved. The water height was decreasing at an astounding rate. As the 6 fire pillars exploded, the crimson lava became dark red, and the heat was multiple times what it was before. Very soon, the dark red lava became a burning white. Mo showed slight joy. The burning white lava was the earth core lava at the core of the earth. It was hundreds of times as strong as normal lava. The pillars of fire were like dragons and intertwined to become a cauldron. The 6 pillars of white fire were like 6 dragons that coiled around the pillar of water and crept up. The energy of the ice and the energy of the earth fire were like countless tentacles crisscrossing. In the sky, they formed a complex blue and white pattern. If one looked closely, they find that there were Mo matrices in this complete pattern and also seal scripts. The white and blue pattern seemed to have put a woven net around the pillar of water and fire. It caused it to appear beautiful. Yet even Mo who had created it underestimated its power. Chapter 714, A God's Descent. The entire underground complex was trembling, large pieces of rock dislodging from the cave walls above them. It seemed to be like the apocalypse, yet all those people that choose to remain were experts. They skillfully sidestepped the falling debris as they watched everything. Everyone's gazes were locked onto the heaven tier Mo weapon pool. While they could not see the situation inside due to the layers of Jinji, they could clearly feel how great and terrifying the power being created was inside. It was like an ancient monster slowly awakening from its deep slumber. The guard leader of Rare Artifacts Hall felt his heart shudder. He was standing very close to the MO weapon pool, and this feeling of power grew even stronger. He had a strong feeling that the MO weapon taking form in the MO weapon pool was filled with danger. Retreat! Everyone, retreat, he shouted at the top of his lungs. The other guards stared at each other, and hesitated. The guard leader's orders were in opposition to the orders from the higher-ups, but the status of the guard leader was extremely high in Rare Artifacts Hall and he had the final say on outside matters. All of you, retreat! The guard leader shouted angrily. The hesitation on the faces of the other guards swept away. They packed up the dark gold boxes on the ground and retreated like the tide. Just as they retreated out 50 zhang, the MO weapon pool rang out, and a thick blue and white pillar of light shot into the sky. Boom boom boom. The pillar of light was 10 zhang thick, and when it touched the rock overhead, the MO matrices that covered the rock layer disappeared like papier-mâché. The hard rock was cut like soft tofu in by the pillar of light. The pillar of light penetrated the thick rock layer without any effort. Boom boom boom. The ground shook. The crowds on the streets had astounded expressions as they flew into the sky. What happened? Is it an earthquake? Just as they started a discussion, a thick blue and white pillar of light suddenly erupted from the ground and entered the sky. The pillar of light stabbed into the cloud layer. Boom boom boom. The cloud layer seemed to be moved by an invisible hand. The clouds from all directions started to gather rapidly towards the pillar of light. In a flash, the cloud layer became black and heavy. The sky started to darken at a visible rate. Only that thick pillar of blue and white light became even brighter and eye-catching. The thick inky black clouds were so heavy they were suffocating. A wild wind rose, and swept up sand and rock. People looked at the sky in fear. Suddenly, a bright and thick bolt of lightning exploded in the sky. Boom oom oom. The thunder seemed to explode in people's minds. Those that were less courageous almost dropped out of the sky. Plop plop, thick bean-sized droplets of rain poured down. In this moment, a wild wind and storm suddenly started gusting. The sky and earth was deluged in a heavy rain that impeded their vision. Silver snakes danced above their heads, and the power of the world was displayed. The terrified crowd did not have any attention to spare to marvel at the power of the world. Their gazes were all fixed in fear at the blinding blue and white pillar of light. Inside the blue and white pillar of white, Zhua Mo was disheveled. This was the first time he had merged Mo matrices and seal scripts together so perfectly, yet the power of the two together surpassed his imagination. When the blue and white Mo matrices lit up, he had a bad feeling, but the light that charged upwards had immediately swallowed him. The remnants of his clothing turned to ash. As his expression changed drastically, the grey dragon claw bracelet on his wrist suddenly lit up with a faint blood-colored tinge. This layer of blood suddenly shot out and wrapped around Zhua Mo like a ball of fire. The blue and white pillar of light was vicious, but it could not defeat the thin layer of blood. The anti-dragon claw. Zhua Mo was astounded. Ever since the anti-dragon claw had been heavily damaged the last time he used it, it had lost its shine and its power. Its unusual state at this time caused Zhua Mo's heart to beat uncontrollably. Zhua Mo looked down. There seemed to be even brighter threads of blood mist wrapped around his hand. They were like tiny blood dragons that wrapped around him. Suddenly, a handful of the blood mist rose, and the dragon raised its head. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded in Zhua Mo's mind without warning. The blood mist opened, like a dragon stretching its great maw and howling angrily. The ball of light that was closest to Zhua Mo immediately shook and then started to fly shakily towards Zhua Mo. This was... Zhua Mo gaped at this scene. Before he could react, the blood mist on his wrist acted like a real dragon and accurately struck the ball of light floating over. When the blood mist hit the light ball, it turned into a ball of bloody mist and tightly surrounded the ball of light. The ball of light continued to struggle in the bloody mist, but its struggles quickly weakened until it became motionless. The blood mist roiled as it swallowed the ball of light. The blood mist soon became denser, and there was some more light on the dragon claw bracelet on Zhuomo's wrist. After feeding, the blood mist became multiple times stronger and immediately headed to another ball of light. The interior of the pillar of light turned to chaos. The remaining 9 balls of light flew frantically to avoid this terrifying ball of blood mist. These balls of light were intelligent, and nimble in movement. The blood mist leapt around for a while but didn't manage to get even one. Suddenly, the blood mist stopped and formed into a blurry dragon's head. It suddenly opened its mouth and gave a furious roar. Roar! The dragon's roar exploded in Zhuomo's mind. His mind immediately blanked. The 9 balls of light that had been fleeing all simultaneously froze. The blood mist immediately took this chance and swallowed another ball of light. The dragon claw bracelet on Zhuomo's hand became even brighter. At this time, a dark gold little figure suddenly appeared within the pillar of light. A mirror image of Zhuomo, it was the black gold seal soldier. He greedily licked his lips. He suddenly lunged at a ball of light and tried to chomp on it with his mouth. His body was small to begin with, and when he consumed the ball of light, his hands were locked around the ball of light as his legs kicked in the air. He clearly was using all of his strength. The blood mist acted just as it had before and swallowed another 3 balls of light before contentedly flicking its tail and burrowing back into the dragon claw bracelet. The dragon claw on Zhuomo's wrist had changed from its withered state. It became lifelike, its flesh and muscles filled out, and its claws crimson red. A feeling rose in Zhuomo's mind. He was able to discern the thoughts that the dragon claw was passing to him. The efficiency of the black gold seal soldier was much lower. He only had time to chew on 2 balls of light. He looked yearningly at the remaining balls of light. He then carefully looked at Zhuomo. Taking advantage of the fact that Zhuomo was distracted, he escaped burrowing back into the ring. Zhuomo gaped at everything that had occurred. He hadn't expected that the anti-dragon claw and the black gold seal soldier would come out midway during crafting, and before he could get a grasp of the situation, he lost half of his balls of light. The anti-dragon claw looked more energetic, but it had not recovered to its past state. The black gold seal soldier started to sleep again. Each ball of light was an Earth MO weapon. In a flash, there were 5 fewer Earth MO weapons. 5 Earth MO weapons. Realizing this after the fact, Zhuomo's mind exploded. How many Mabe was that? He seemed to see an ocean of Mabe disappearing in a flash. Anger rose. There was nothing more hateful than stealing Jingshi and Mabe from GE. Zhuomo's eyes filled with blood, an extremely dangerous presence coming off him. The remaining 5 balls of light trembled like the sheep trembling under the claws and fangs of a demon king. Yet the last bit of remaining reason suppressed Zhuomo's anger. After losing 5 of the balls of light, the concentration of power in the blue pillar of light skyrocketed. The forging of the MO weapons had reached the most important step. If he was the least bit careless, it would all be for nothing. The blue pillar of light was a Dan cauldron made from the earth fire and the cold currents. Zhuomo took a deep breath and, with the anger suppressed inside, he furiously shot Mo matrices into the 5 Mo weapons. With every Mo matrix that was put into the balls of light, there would be a thread of pure earth fire and cold current that would burrow into the ball of light. Yet, stimulated by the disappearance of an astounding amount of Mabe, Zhuomo clearly was sent into a rage, and the Mo matrices that left his hands became more and more ridiculous. With the first ball of light, he was still trying to control himself, and the Mo matrices he had used were within the range of normality. By the last ball of light, his restraint was completely gone. The MO matrices rained down like a waterfall, and there were numerous complex seal scripts mixed within them. On this last MO weapon, he smashed MO matrices and seal scripts for 2 hours. He seemed to vent his anger into this ball of light. The balls of light trembled, the anti-dragon claw was docile, and the black gold seal soldier was silent. When an astounding amount of cold currents and earth fire flooded into the last ball of light, the ball of light seemed as though it would burst at any moment. Only now did Zhuemo suddenly recover his calm and jumped in fright. The last ball of light was twice the size of the other 4 balls of light. It was like an overinflated balloon that swayed. Zhuemo immediately felt his scalp prickle. If this guy exploded. The result caused him to shudder. He saw this and hurriedly stopped. The rudiments within the 5 balls of light were like 5 balls of metal liquid. They started to take shape. Zhuemo widened his eyes and didn't dare to miss even a detail. Seeing the growth of these rudiments was very beneficial for him. A 3-part weapon, sword, saber, and shield combo, a blood-colored spear with an icicle tassel, a sun and moon chakram, a pair of 13 chain-linked whips. Only the largest ball constantly changed but did not fully take form. It was like a ball of liquid metal with MO matrices and seal scripts constantly flowing on it. Zhuemo widened his eyes to look closely but felt dizzy. He was astounded, and his anticipation of this MO weapon grew slightly higher. 12 whole hours. An unexpected MO weapon finally took form, a set of battle armor. The icy blue battle armor had beautiful curves. Its dark red helm had a murderous appearance. Every armor piece were thin and ice blue. If one looked closely, they would see that every scale was covered in countless complex and beautiful lines. There was a pair of snowy white wings attached to the back that gave it an aura of holiness. Even Zhuemo, who had forged countless treasures, couldn't help but be enchanted by this set of battle armor. When the battle armor took form, the entire pillar of light suddenly grew. Zhuemo felt a great power suddenly erupt from under the ground. Before he could react, he was like a little stone that was shot out. He shot upwards, and when he passed by the 5 MO weapons, the 5 MO weapons turned into 5 streaks of light that tightly spun around him. When he passed through the dozens of li of rock and flew out of the earth into the sky, everyone in Buzhou City couldn't help but raise their heads. Ah! Zhuemo left a long cry tailing after him. He had never flown so high before. Through the cloud layer, through the atmosphere, Zhuemo was above the clouds and didn't know how long he flew for. Suddenly, he felt his body start to fall. He panicked even more, and an even more piteous wail started. All. In a panic, Zhuemo grabbed the battle armor spinning around him. Zhuemo only had one though in his mind. The armor had wings. At this time, the black clouds that filled the sky suddenly dissipated. A blinding light suddenly shone out from the thick cloud layer. Within this great beam of light, under the upraised gazes from all of Buzhou City, and glittering perfect figure with large snowy wings and radiating sparks, surrounded by 4 glowing MO weapons, dove down like a meteor. A shocking hum filled the air. Boom! The legs wrapped in icy blue armor were slightly bent as they heavily stepped onto the ground. Air currents on the ground carried dust and soil as they moved outwards. The snowy white wings moved fanned upwards and outwards, and Zhuemo seemed to be a statue. Pew 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 pew. 4 streaks of light heavily embedded themselves into the ground around him. The 4 MO weapons showed their true appearance with a murderous air. Everyone suddenly felt the same words appear in their minds: a god's descent to earth. Chapter 715, The Monarch of MO Weapons Chui and looked warily around. He found there were 4 people close in strength to him in this group of people. Those flickering gazes were filled with faint danger and great wariness. It was crowded inside the Sky Shark. The Sky Shark that used to transport only a few hundred people now was forced to hold over 2,020 people. The overcrowding could be imagined. However, no one dared to complain. This was a sky shark that had been temporarily added to the route. There were more than 300 sky sharks like this. All of them had one destination, Buzhou City. Yet even with the addition of 300 sky sharks and their massive carrying capacity was not able to satisfy the crazy flow of people. Each sky shark was filled to capacity with people. All the privileges of the private yards and first-class residences were revoked. Each corner was filled with people. But even in such terrible conditions, people still paid twice the usual cost for a ticket. Chuan had good luck. He had bought a shark ticket using a connection from his friend to board this sky shark. Many more people had to travel day and night, on small mo steeds, over mountains and rivers to head to Buzhou City. They formed groups like herds of ants that moved towards Buzhou City tirelessly. The present mo territories was boiling because of a miracle. For Earth mo weapons and a Super mo weapon of unclear grade had been created, Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai had astounded the world. News of this incomprehensible miracle immediately spread to every corner of the mo territories. Before this, no mo weapon Grandmaster had been able to forge 2 Earth mo weapons at once, never. 4 Earth mo weapons. Yes, 4 Earth mo weapons. All 4 of them had been examined by Rare Artifacts Hall and they were all Earth mo weapons of great quality. After obtaining the agreement of the Grandmaster, Rare Artifacts Hall immediately publicized the detailed descriptions of these 4 Earth mo weapons. In a brief amount of time, the information spread to the rest of the world like lightning. The information on these 4 Earth mo weapons were made public was like pouring hot water into a pot of boiling oil. Ice Blood 3 Hound Seat was comprised of 3 mo weapons, a saber, a sword, and a shield. This was a very rare set. The saber and the sword were both long and narrow. The saber was dark red, and its channels flowed like rivers. The sword was icy blue, sharp, and transparent like a sword made from crystalline ice. The shield was an buckler shield. It was completely black and had 5 irregularly placed stars on it. Blue Horsefly was the only long-range weapon among the 4 mo weapons. It was a blood spear, and had a tassel made from 12 ice blue crystals. What was even more wondrous was the body of the spear. The crimson-red spear seemed to be soaked in fresh blood, yet when one gripped the spear, they would find that the body was made from countless minuscule flows of blood. These blood-colored flows would shift slightly as though they were alive. Dark clearly chakrams were a pair of larger and smaller chakrams. The large one was dark gold, and had a fiery pattern. When it was held in the hand, it was like holding a ball of fire. The smaller chakram was snowy white and covered in faint patterns of the moon, almost weightless in the hand. When the 2 chakrams were placed close together, they would attract each other and slowly spin. 13 Pillars was a pair of whips, each with 13 links. The pair of whips were extremely heavy. With every flick of the whip, thunder and wind would sound. When the 2 whips danced together, it could cause thunder to manifest in the sky. If one was to nurture them in storm clouds, they would become even more powerful. This was an extremely rare Earth mo weapon with great power. All 4 Earth mo weapons were first class. When Rare Artifacts Hall publicized them, the other mo weapon masters started to judge them, but every one of them placed them in the top 50 of Earth mo weapons. Other than the mo Weapon Master Association which put all 4 Earth mo weapons at the very bottom. However, no one paid attention to the mo Weapon Master Association's assessment. Everyone thought of the promise that Xiao Yunhai had given before. 1 reverse shadow soul silkgrass could be used to trade for an Earth mo weapon. Many people beat their chests and stomped their feet. Why didn't they believe this before? Right now, on the black market, the price of a reverse shadow soul silkgrass had risen to a ridiculous level, and there was no supply. Chuan had reverse shadow soul silkgrass. He was just a half step away from martial level. Owning an Earth mo weapon was something that he had dreamed about. Even if he became a marshal, obtaining one would take a very long time. But no matter which method he tried, he hadn't managed to obtain an Earth MO weapon. Every Earth MO weapon was treasured by their master, and would not be easily given to others. So when he had heard Xiao Yunhai's promise, he didn't believe it, but he had held some hope. He tried his best to get a reverse shadow soul silkgrass. When the 4 Earth MO weapons came into the world, he became excited and immediately started to head for Buzhou City. On the road, he was extremely careful, especially when he found there were others that were close in power to him. These people were mostly MO like Chuan that were on their own. They were not dragged down by their families, nor did they rely on any faction. They had strong desires for Earth MO weapons. Usually, Earth MO weapons were bought out by the major factions, and they would not go onto the market. They never had any chances. For them, Buzhou City was a 1 in 1,000 chance. Chuan couldn't help but become nervous. Among those traveling with him, would the 4 that were close in power to him also have reverse shadow soul silkgrass? For experts of his level, other than Earth MO weapons, they would be able to obtain other treasures if they tried, like the reverse shadow soul silkgrass. Chuan laughed inwardly. He hadn't thought that there would be a day that he would feel nervous. He had always felt that he would be able to calmly face whatever happened. He hadn't thought that he would lose his calm today. But, in the end, he was a strong MO. His mind was strong and he quickly adjusted. Having quieted the restlessness in his heart, Chuan was immediately listened in on the exchange between the surrounding MO weapon masters. Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai is definitely the best grandmaster of this era. No, he is the best grandmaster of all time. A MO weapon master dressed in blue robes said with an excited expression. Strangely, no one objected to his words. It is really too astounding, another MO weapon master couldn't help but say. When he said this, there was incredulity mixed on his face with shock and reverence. It was a complicated expression. Everyone had discussed this title many times in the recent while. They were not the only ones. Right now, all of the MO territories couldn't wait to present the title of Best MO Weapon Grandmaster to Xiao Yunhai. Other than the strong objections from the MO Weapon Master Association, no one else felt that this was sudden and inappropriate. Even many people inside the MO Weapon Master Association agreed, but due to the stern attitudes of the Grandmasters leading them, they didn't dare to publicly state their opinions. But more and more factions supported this, thusly more and more commentary would use appellations of respect such as, the greatest MO Weapon Grandmaster, or, the Grandmaster of Grandmasters, when they discussed Xiao Yunhai. They no longer said that he didn't know his limits, they no longer said that he was arrogant, they no longer said that he was boasting. Countless people departed for Buzhou City to see this Grandmaster that had come out of nowhere and was so strong he could defeat any Grandmaster in history, the strongest Grandmaster. He was like the undoubted monarch of MO Weapon Masters. All the MO Weapon Masters in each MO Jia moved as the news spread. They came from all areas to see this MO Weapon Monarch that had never appeared in history before. And that super MO weapon, why didn't Rare Artifacts Hall publicize its information? The blue-robed MO Weapon Master had a heated gaze of reverence. He said heatedly, surpassing Earth MO weapons, then isn't it a Sky Missouri weapon? It's not a Sky Missouri weapon. A gray-robed youth with a grave expression suddenly spoke. When he spoke, everyone else quieted. He said calmly, I studied the mirage of the MO weapons coming out. That super MO weapon should be the complete set of body armor with wings that Grandmaster was wearing. The gray-robed youth was the most knowledgeable and skilled MO weapon master among this group, the others deeply respected them. Even the enthusiastic blue-robed youth believed the gray-robed youth's judgment. He said in puzzlement, what is it if it is not a Sky Missouri weapon? I don't know either, the gray-robed youth shook his head and said, I am going to the MO Weapon Holy Pool to look. I might be able to find some clues. Yes. We have to see the MO Weapon Holy Pool. Everyone nodded. Chuan heard this and couldn't resist saying, sorry to disturb everyone, what is this MO weapon holy pool? He had never heard of a MO weapon holy pool. The blue-robed youth replied first, the MO weapon pool where Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai forged the MO weapons. You don't know. This MO weapon pool has given birth to 4 Earth MO weapons and that Super MO weapon. For some unknown reason, the MO weapon pool has completely crystallized, and all of Grandmaster's preparations have been perfectly preserved. A few days ago, Grandmaster had ordered to allow the public to view the holy pool. Chuan finally understood. Another MO weapon master said emotionally, I would even crawl to Buzhou City for the opportunity to see the holy pool. Chuan immediately recognized a serious problem. Doesn't this mean that more and more people will come to Buzhou City? The grey-robed youth glanced at Chuan and said coolly, no MO weapon master will pass on this chance. Barring any accidents, the holy pool will become the holy ground for MO weapon masters. The other people nodded with similar expressions. Chuan's grimace became even more bitter. In a tightly guarded secret room underground. This is still unable to be assessed. The middle-aged MO shook his head. He had a grimace. His tone was admiring and amazed. This was the 6th time he had gathered various appraisers to judge this unique MO armor. But none were able to determine or guess at its level. These appraisers were all experienced. Each of them had at least 20 years of working experience. But even with so many assessors, they were unable to determine the general level. For this, they had fought countless times, slapped the table, swore at each other, and even fought. However, they were still unable to give an assessment. But they were strangely in agreement on one point, it definitely wasn't a Sky Missouri weapon. Or rather, it was completely different than any other Sky Missouri weapon in history. Every appraiser couldn't bear to allow their gaze to leave this breathtakingly beautiful set of MO armor. It really was too beautiful. It had many wondrous and incomprehensible parts. These wondrous traits were different than any MO weapon that these appraisers had seen before. What really was this? All of their puzzled gazes focused on Zhuemo. Chapter 716, Angel Device Raymond Zhuemo was also slightly uncertain. The appraisers were not the only ones puzzled, Zhuemo was also very puzzled. The formation of this MO Raymond had been accidental. At the time, the Black Gold Seal Soldier and the Anti-Dragon Claw had consumed 5 Earth MO weapons which had caused his anger to shoot to his head. He had thrown everything he prepared for those 5 weapons into the last ball. It had wondrously not exploded and formed this strange thing. In reality, the earth fire and cold current that this freak rudiment had absorbed surpassed the sum of the other 4 Earth MO weapons. Even if it was strange, it was a powerfully strange one. Zhuemo tried to manipulate it using normal MO weapon methods, but there was always a feeling of being blocked. This puzzled him. While MO weapons might have slightly different methods of use, they were not different at the core. Mo's strongest power was their physical body, their body was the source they derived their power from. The MO weapons were formed from this unique trait of the MO. But no matter how Zhuemo channeled his MO art, while he was able to use it, there was always a feeling of being hampered. Zhuemo thought of the seal scripts that he had sent out during the forging process. Was it more like a talisman? Zhuemo tried to use Ling power to activate it. Strangely, it was also able to be used, but there were still places where it was sluggish. It really was strange. Zhuemo had seen so many talismans and MO weapons, but had never seen such a strange item before. This strange thing was also something that he had forged. Yet while this MO raiment seemed to be a thin layer, it was impervious to damage by water and fire. Even Zhuemo's Sun-Shen fire didn't affect it at all. This astounded Zhuemo. He knew the power of the Sun-Shen fire. It was able to melt almost everything. When this MO raiment was put on, it would automatically tighten around the body to become a thin skin. That pair of wings would move according to one's thoughts. They looked soft but they were difficult to damage with MO weapons. Strangely, when Zuemo used the saber of the Iceblood 3-hound seat to chop out a cut, after one night, it managed to heal itself and not leave a mark behind. Everyone gaped at this. Zuemo could only grimace and spread his hand. I don't know either. The middle-aged Mo's gaze was hot. He couldn't resist saying, Grandmaster, no matter what the price is, please state it, this Mo raiment. Zuemo waved his hand. There's no need to say more, I want sell this Mo raiment. Even if he knew this would be the answer, the middle-aged Mo was still slightly disappointed. He quickly adjusted his mood and said with a smile, then, Grandmaster, give it a name. The only thing left is that it doesn't have a name. This thing is slightly strange. Zuemo thought for a moment before saying, then it will be the Angel Device Raiment. A good name, the middle-aged Mo praised, but his expression was slightly strange. Zuemo glanced at the middle-aged Mo. The other had done everything to help him. While there were other reasons, it was clear the two were in alliance at the moment. He said, pick one of the 4 Earth Mo weapons. The remaining 3 will be traded for the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. The middle-aged Mo was overjoyed and hurriedly said, I want, Blue Horsefly. Zuemo smiled and said, you have good eyes. Blue Horsefly was the only long-range weapon among all 4 Earth Mo weapons. These 4 Mo weapons all had a unique characteristic, they all had 2 attributes. This was because they had been forged using earth fire in the cold currents of the underground Nether River. Blue Horsefly was the only single-piece Mo weapon of the group. While it was a single item, it had both fire and ice attributes, and was the best among the 4 Mo weapons. The middle-aged Mo smiled freely, however, I will not take this from you for free. That batch of materials was valued at just 2 billion mabe, it is far below the worth of this. Since the materials in the dark gold boxes have been delivered, it will be troublesome to return them, so I will gift them all to Grandmaster. If Grandmaster has any new works, please give 1 or 2 to my rare artifacts haul. Zuemo changed expression. Every one of the materials in the dark gold boxes were rare, and each was of equivalent value to cities. The other was so generous to give all of them to him. This present was astounding. Zuemo thought and then said, if I have new works in the future, you can have the first choice of 2 for free. The middle-aged Mo smiled brightly. Many thanks, Grandmaster, many thanks. The materials had been accumulated by Rare Artifacts Hall over time, and he also felt heartache at giving them out. However, it was still profitable exchange if it cemented their relationship with the strongest Mo weapon master. He had not thought that Zuemo would actually give 2 more Earth Mo weapons. These 2 Earth Mo weapons were more than enough to trade for these materials. Zuemo smiled and said, if I have a need for the help of your hall, Boss E, please take care of me. Zuemo had only learned the middle-aged Mo name not long ago, Ian hurriedly said, Grandmaster is too courteous. Grandmaster's reputation is so great right now that no one would dare to offend you. Ian's words were pointed. He had seen the attitude of the Tang family to Zuemo. However, with Zuemo's present fame, the Tang family would not dare to treat him like they did before. Even as a marshal, Tang Chen would not dare to commit such a great crime. With Zuemo's present status, even Tang Chen would have to call him Grandmaster if they met. Tang Chen was a marshal, but he was not the strongest marshal, much less ranking in history. Yet the name Xiao Yunhai had reached an unprecedented height that left all others looking up to him. This was Zuemo's present status. Zuemo smiled unconcernedly. He was wary of Tang Chen, but he did not fear the other. In terms of strength, Ji Zheng, who he killed, was even more powerful. Right now, he just didn't want to cause any waves, and everything could wait until he got the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Put everything aside, Boss E, please spend more effort on the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Zuemo said. Of course. Of course. Ian hurriedly said. His face was filled with joy. This time, he had gambled rightly. This MO weapon miracle would leave a great mark on history. And Rare Artifacts Hall that had played such a great role in this event would benefit for many years from this. The 4 Earth MO weapons were placed in Rare Artifacts Hall and he would be in complete charge of exchanging the Earth MO weapons for Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Not long in the future, the name of Rare Artifacts Hall would pass into all of the MO territories. Yet Sui MO, who was only focused on obtaining the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass, didn't know what kind of whirlwind he had created. MO Shin Temple. The eyes of the 2 MO gods were locked onto the mirage on the table. It was the Angel Device Raiment. They had gotten the mirage from other avenues and the fidelity of the image to the event was high. Every single detail was clear. There was also a segment after on Zwa Mo landing from the sky. Their expressions were filled with surprise. Without blinking, they had stared at the mirage for a whole night. It is not a Sky Missouri weapon, the Rhinoceros Mo god rumbled out. There was a rare blush on his calm face, and his excitement could be seen. It is a Shin device. The eldest Mo god's gaze didn't move at all. It was possible to hear a thread of insuppressible excitement from his cold tone. On his thin face, the sickle-shaped mark was completely exposed. Shin device. The Rhinoceros Mo stilled. While that, Angel Device Raiment, was unlike any MO weapon he had seen before, he hadn't thought that it would be a Shin weapon. Old 3 said that the mysterious old man said that Xiao Yunhai might be able to forge Shin devices. I hadn't thought that he would actually forge something so close to a Shin device, the eldest Mo god slowly said. The sickle red mark on his face moved and appeared unspeakably terrifying. Close to Shin device, I understand. The Rhinoceros Mo god's shock lessened slightly and nodded. He could accept this. It is very close. There was surprise and admiration on the eldest Mo god's face. He stood and drawled, if a Shin device appears, the era of Shin power will come even more quickly. The Rhinoceros Mo said gravely, we do not need to change anything. No. The eldest Mo god narrowed his eyes and his tone was sharp. We need to quickly resolve our fatal weakness, expand even more quickly to get the most advantage before our enemies have grown up. While their relative power has fallen, they have strong foundations and this means that they will be stronger in the long run. What should we do? The Rhinoceros Mo Gold's expression did not change as he rumbled out a question. We need the Angel Device Raiment. This is the Mo weapon that is closest to a Shin device right now. We need to study this. The eldest Mo god narrowed his eyes and said methodically, also, if Xiao Yunhai is on our hands, we do not have to worry that Xiao Mo Gu will not come. But this way, wouldn't we make too much of a fuss? The Rhinoceros Mo god looked at the eldest Mo god. His tone was calm. Xiao Yunhai is a star right now, it will be troublesome if we move against him. In the end, we can only have a say in this world based on power, the eldest Mo god said coolly. In front of absolute power, everything else is as fragile as paper. The Tang family will have qualms, but we do not need to worry. The eldest Mo god said proudly. Sui Mo did not go out and show off. While he would receive numerous exquisitely crafted invitations every day, he ignored them all. He had gained much this time. Other than his Mo weapon's crafting ability, he felt as though his spell level had also skyrocketed. Forging was able to increase control of Ling power, so the Xiuzha that were skilled in forging would usually have outstanding control of Ling power. This could be seen from how many sects mandated forging as an essential class to take. The control of Ling power had always been Zhuo Mo's shortcoming, but after forging in this time, and with the Gravestone Oath's boost, he had progressed rapidly. Other than the Earth Mo weapon he gave Rare Artifacts Hall, according to the promise he had given before, he would only be able to get 3 Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses. He didn't know if 3 Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrasses would be enough, but he decided to use the time to forge some more Earth Mo weapons to change for more Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. Also, he had gained greatly from forging Earth MO weapons. If he did it again, his Ling power control would go up a level, and his strength would grow stronger. The rare 1,000-year-old collection of rare artifacts hall was on his hand right now. These materials stimulated him, and he kept on having new ideas. The previous forging process had also given him many inspirations, especially that strange, angel device raiment. He had a strong impulse to forge new MO weapons. Chapter 717, The mysterious old man's YMO was optimistic about forging, but the reality of the situation was not so sunny. The water level of the underground Nether River had been drastically lowered, and for the first time, it was lowered almost to the riverbed. The Heaven Tier MO weapon pool had completely crystallized and it was unusable for forging MO weapons. On this matter, the party who lost was the Tang family. ZWMO had almost dried up the entirety of the underground Nether River, and it would be many years for the MO weapon pools to recover to their previous state. However, there was no way they could ask for reparations from ZWMO. In the eyes of other people, the Tang family had benefited greatly. An endless stream of visitors had caused the underground Nether River to become a tourist spot. It was not so easy for ZWMO to find another high-level MO weapon pool. Also, before he found a new MO weapon pool, he needed to deal with another problem, the angle device raiment. There were many people who had used all kinds of methods and connections to inform him that they hoped to see the angel device raiment. Look at the background of these people. The Tang family patriarch Tang Cheng, Gongzi Shi, Feng Xinz of the Yao envoys, Ji Liu, Mo god Yoshi Yaku of the Mo Shan temple. Any of them were influential on their own, and what was most unexpected to ZWMO was that the Mo Shan temple would send in such a request. ZWMO had a deep impression of the great power of the rhinoceros Mo god of the Mo Shan temple. At that time, ZWMO finally saw the power of Shan power. Even though he had cultivated Shan power for such a long time, he had never seen such astounding Shan power. It would not be easy for ZWMO to refuse any of the requests. Their demand was not outrageous. They only wanted to see the mysterious, angel device raiment. After some thought, ZWMO decided to hold a small public demonstration to show off the angel device raiment. There were many parts to the angel device raiment that ZWMO had a hard time understanding, and he also hoped that these experts would give him some ideas. Numerous invitations were sent out. Yet what followed surprised ZWMO. More requests and inquiries came in. He had to increase the number of invitations. The underground Nether River wasn't the only spot filled with people. All of Buzhou City was filled with people in every corner. It was the first time so many people were visiting Buzhou City since it was built. Unlike the Tang family who was worried about maintaining their control, the other factions were excited. This was such a good opportunity to make money. The busiest and most populous place in Buzhou City was still the Rare Artifacts Hall. If ZWMO came to visit the Rare Artifacts Hall again, his jaw would drop in shock. The outer wall of Rare Artifact Hall had been taken down. Other than the heavy jinji that were kept, everything else was cleared out, and there were only 4 crystal shelves inside. There was an Earth MO weapon floating inside each crystal case. The 4 newly created Earth MO weapons were like 4 vicious beasts silently hibernating as they showed off their beauty and power. Every MO that came to visit showed intoxication when they saw these 4 top MO weapons. The perfect merging of beauty and power. The MO who revered strength didn't have any immunity towards them. It was the lifelong wish of many people to see the grandeur of the legendary Earth MO weapons at a close distance. If it wasn't for the heavy jinji on the crystal cases, and the great jinji that curved to cover the entire place, many people would have instinctively reached out. Inhales, swallows, and gasps of shock rang out. Every shopkeeper of Rare Artifacts Hall straightened their backs, their faces covered in professional smiles. They felt peerlessly proud and excited at the scene in front of them. Chuan was among the crowd. His gaze was burning and desirous as it fixated on the 4 Earth MO weapons. However, what he felt more of was anxiousness. One reverse shadow soul silkgrass to trade for an earth MO weapon, was this true? Gritting his teeth, he walked in front of a shopkeeper. May I ask if it is possible to trade a reverse shadow soul silkgrass for an earth MO weapon now? The shopkeeper, who had a small smile on his face all this time, immediately turned grave. Yes, it can be traded. Sir has a reverse shadow soul silkgrass. The words were heaven to Chui An's ears. He was overjoyed but kept his expression calm. Yes. The shopkeeper did not dare to slight him and hurriedly said, "Please come with me." The shopkeeper quickly guided Chui An towards a heavily guarded inner room. The shops surrounding Rare Artifacts Hall had been bought, borrowed, or rented at a high price by Rare Artifacts Hall. An experienced appraiser had been waiting in the room. Chui An took a deep breath and carefully took out the reverse shadow soul silkgrass. The assessor carefully made his assessment. About 15 minutes later, he wiped the fine sweat off his forehead, nodded, and said, "It is reverse shadow soul silkgrass, the quality is good, it can be traded." Chui An's heart uncontrollably jumped, and a feeling of great fortune flooded his body and mind. The shopkeeper was also slightly excited when he heard this, but he kept his composure. He said, "Congratulations, sir. Other than blue horsefly, you can choose any of the other three." It was not a surprise that blue horsefly belonged to Rare Artifacts Hall. Blue horsefly had been the only weapon marked with the insignia of Rare Artifacts Hall among the 4 Earth MO weapons displayed. Chui An inhaled deeply, and calmed his excitement. "I want the clearly chakrams." When the clearly chakrams disappeared suddenly from the crystal cases, the people who had been looking at it immediately gasped. Nearby shopkeepers hurriedly explained. The news that someone had used reverse shadow soul silkgrass to trade for the clearly chakrams spread through the entire city. Reverse shadow soul silkgrass could be traded for Earth MO weapons. This was true. The world immediately went crazy. Zhuo looked warily at the old man in front of him. A Gui stood woodenly by his side. Tseng Lianer narrowed her eyes as her long sleeve that touched the floor remained still, as though she was prepared to attack at any moment. Zhuo was astounded when the old man had materialized like a ghost. The guard outside was tight, yet the old man had managed to make his way in without being detected. Yet what surprised him was that the old man was looking at a Gui. His gaze was complex, mixed with pity, tenderness, and guilt. Zhuo unconsciously shielded a Gui and faced the old man guardedly. "She has the undying Shen punishment?" the old man suddenly asked. His eyes were full of a complicated emotion. Zhuo's body suddenly shook and he abruptly raised his head. He asked gravely as his murderousness came out, "Who are you?" The old man ignored Zhuo. His brow creased with slight dissatisfaction. "Haven't you found that her undying Shen power has a problem?" "The undying Shen power has a problem?" Zhuo's expression changed slightly as he rushed to hold a Gui's wrist. The purple chain had become even thicker. There seemed to be something that was barely taking form inside a Gui's soul. "What is going on?" Zhuo's tone changed. No matter how he tried, he could not see what was being formed inside a Gui's soul. He was slightly terrified. He could not do anything to the undying Shen power, and his greatest fear was a problem occurring. And as expected, his greatest fear was occurring. The undying Shen punishment has not changed much, the old man mused to himself, other than. Other than what? Zhuo unconsciously blurted out. Unless she formed the undying Shen seal. The old man suddenly raised his head. Yes, it definitely is the undying Shen seal. Seeing the blankness on Zhuo's face, the old man explained in a cold voice, "The undying Shen punishment is the cruelest Shen punishment, but it is not without hope. The only solution in legend is to form the undying Shen seal and search for life in death." I had not thought the legends were true. The undying Shen seal, it definitely is the undying Shen seal. So this means that a Gue can break free of the undying Shin punishment? Suemo said joyfully. It is not so easy. The old man smiled coldly. He looked at Suemo, narrowed his eyes that dimmed and brightened. His gaze caused Suemo's hairs to stand on end. He felt a strong feeling of danger and he was on his guard. Suddenly, the old man's expression returned to normal as though the enmity he had just exuded was an illusion. He said lightly, the undying Shin seal is the 1 in 10,000 chance of life in death. While there is the legend, no one knows how it can formed. It is difficult to say whether she has the undying Shin power or not. Even if she does, the danger she faces far surpasses your imagination. If you have reverse shadow soul silkgrass, you may want to try. The old man looked deeply at Suemo. You want to know your origins, but it will also help her. Those memories can help her understand her own heart and not get lost in the pain of the undying Shin punishment. Suemo seemed to understand. He thought of the peaceful Ague within the purple chains and shook his head. Ague will not lose herself. The old man stilled slightly when he heard this. His expression quickly recovered and he threw a small bag to Suemo. This is scab fragrance, feed it to her, it is also of benefit, the old man said coolly. Don't keep your angel device raiment, it will only bring calamity. Suemo received the little bag but noticed the old man's words. He asked in response, bring calamity? You poked the hornet's nest, the old man said impatiently. Also, no matter what, do not expose your identity as Xiao Mo Gu. Suemo's expression changed dramatically. Even Tsing Lianer's expression changed and she almost attacked from the side. The other knew his identity as Xiao Mo Gu. Suemo's expression wavered and he was shocked inside. The old man glanced at Tsing Lianer and then he was clearly unfriendly when he looked at Suemo. So young, but you have many women. Tsing Lianer was like a cat who had its tail that was stepped on. Her narrowed eyes immediately froze over. The old man didn't even look at Suemo. He said, the Yao are a good partner to trade with, ask for, reincarnation feather, soul execution Yao light, death thought bead. They are all beneficial for her. If it is Tian Huan, trade for the Tian Huan case. If it is Kuan Luan, trade for the Kuan Luan sword soul, jade level, and get 3. Shi Xian's, 5-element soul Dan, Xian Kong's, Great Compassion Great Sorrow Life Sutra. The Mo don't have anything good for healing the soul. Suemo was confused but he had a general grasp. He was even more puzzled and couldn't help but ask, what is the angel device raiment? Shin device. Shin device. Suemo's eyes widened. Just close to it. The old man added, do your best. Finishing, the old man disappeared right in front of Suemo's eyes. Suemo and Tsing Lianer changed expression. Suemo suddenly thought of a Shin method from the ancient era called the Shin Void Pass. Shin power. The old man cultivated Shin power. Who was he? Chapter 718, Pseudo-Shin Device. The angel device raiment, it really is a Shin device. Suemo sighed in praise. He looked down at the blue armor that tightly wrapped around him and the layer of faint but dense flames. The serene blue flames burned soundlessly. When he channeled Shin power, the angel device raiment would automatically form this kind of water blue flame. This caused the armor that appeared to have been made from layers of clear blue crystal to become even more beautiful. When Suemo channeled a little over half of his Sun Shin power capacity, the snowy white wings would give off golden flames. When they moved, sparks would fall. These sparks were miniature Shin fire. If one came into contact with it, they would adhere, and burn until everything was ash. The serene blue and the gold flames intersected and shined, yet they did not give off any presence. Their ability to conceal themselves was greater than any Yao art or spell that Suemo knew of. There was a faint tinge of blood over Suemo's vision. He could easily see the see-through over 3 zhang of thick rock. Even deeply hidden Jinji were clear to his eyes. The more he used it, the more Zhuo Mo liked it. There was no hindrance when he channeled Shen power into it, and when he wore the angel device raiment, he could activate a Shen technique using less than 8/10 of the Shen power it normally took. Zhuo Mo had Tsing Lianer try as well. When Tsing Lianer channeled moon Shen power, the angel device raiment would flash with a faint moonlight. What was most fantastical was that when the wings danced, a crescent moon would occasionally appear and the Shen power shedding off it was sharp instead. Agui was the eeriest. When she wore the angel device raiment, the dark red mask would become purple, and the snowy white wings would become as black as ink and give off faint black mist. The blue armor would also become pitch black. If she stood there and did not move for over 3 breaths, she would disappear into the darkness like smoke. As expected of a Shen device. Before this, Zhuo Mo had not thought that the angel device raiment would be a Shen device. Now that the old man pointed it out, he immediately tried, and many places that had puzzled him were now clear. He reluctantly took the angel device raiment off. He now understood its value. The old man was right. The angel device raiment was something he desired, but also a hot potato. Also, Zhuo Mo was willing to trade it for something useful for Agui. The angel device raiment was good, but Zhuo Mo had confidence that he would be able to forge even better Shen devices in the future. Strictly speaking, the angel device raiment was only a pseudo-Shen device, and not a true one. What worried Zhuo Mo more was the undying Shen power in Agui that had started to change. Neither Pu Yao nor Wei had heard of the undying Shen seal, but the two did not feel the old man had been lying. Zhuo Mo moved his gaze away from the angel device raiment, and asked, "What do you think of the old man?" "The old man cultivates Shen power," Pu Yao said coldly. His eyes were narrowed. A cold light moved through the blood pupil like a blade revolving in the sunlight. All the signs indicated that Pu Yao was not in a good mood. He had always been the strongest support behind Zhuo Mo. No matter if it was Yao arts, spells, Mo skills, he had guided Zhuo Mo. Yet in the blink of an eye, as though it was a dream, he found that the world seemed to change. People that cultivated Shen power, and were stronger than him had appeared. The strong return of Shen power had caused this world to become unfamiliar, and this tide was not something that an individual's power could reverse. This made Zhuo Mo feel dispirited, and Pu Yao, who was extremely competitive, disliked this feeling. He is very strong. Even in my era, he would be strong. Wei's expression was unusually grave. He had existed for longer than Pu Yao, from the last stages of the ancient era to now, and to the era of Shen power returning. Those memories that had almost disappeared gradually started to become clear again. Yet, while he seemed to have known them, the memories felt completely different. This was going to be a new era. Pu Yao quickly calmed down, and he buried the cold glint in his eyes. As one of the strongest in the world at his time, Pu Yao possessed a strong mind and unparalleled calmness. He feels enmity towards you, but it seems that he isn't your enemy. He is very friendly towards Agui, and should have a deep connection to her. Yes, even in our era, the scab fragrance is a very rare treasure and has unique effects to calm the soul. I hadn't thought there would be scab fragrance here. They definitely have a deep relationship. Otherwise, he would not freely give such a valuable treasure. Wei nodded and agreed with Pu Yao's speculation. Wei would only not be a nag when he was discussing serious matters now. Zhuo Mo nodded as well. His thoughts were about the same as the other two. He knows my identity, that means that he has paid attention to me for a long time. He has a deep relationship to Agui, so it is very likely he knows my origins. Next time, I have to learn this. Zhuo Mo had a thoughtful expression. When the angel device raiment is being sold, he will definitely be observing from the shadows. There will be a chance to meet with him again. But the angel device raiment is a big problem. When he spoke of this, Mo couldn't help but grimace. Actually, before the old man's reminder, he had detected something from the tsunami of invitations. Yet when the secret of the angel device raiment, being a pseudocian device, was revealed, he knew that trouble was still ahead of him. It was a good idea to trade the angel device raiment for those treasures, but if he was the least bit careless, the situation would spiral out of control. This was the first pseudocian device that had appeared in so many years. There were many people that were willing to risk anything to get it. It is slightly troublesome, Pu Yao said coldly. If they scheme, your identity is a sensitive one, you cannot expose Shen power, Xing Lianer and Agui cannot fight. Mo's brow furrowed. Have rare artifacts Hall come protect us? Pu Yao snorted. They don't know that the angel device raiment is a pseudocian device. If they knew, the first ones with devious ideas will be them. Also, this time, the ones that are coming are the big names. Rare artifacts Hall cannot stop them. Mo found this was very troublesome. Pu Yao was right. This time, the ones who had come were big names. Mo Shen Temple, Tian Huan, Kunluen, the Yao Council of Elders, all the Mo marshals, and hidden experts like the old man who were of unknown origins but had unfathomable power. If those people tried to do something to him, Rare Artifacts Hall could not stop him. Yet he could not expose his identity and fight. Use Jinji, Wei suddenly said, before they react. Set up a large Jinji. The seal formations and Mo matrices Jinji that Golden Crow Camp have studied are already mature. Golden Crow Camp. Mo stilled. It had been very long since he had communicated with them. The communication was usually one way, where he would send the results of his own studies back to Golden Crow Camp for them to study at regular intervals. The idea of setting up Jinji was a good one. If the Jinji he set was powerful enough, and he was in control, he would not have to worry about anything happening. But then he thought of the people coming. If they were not marshals, they were terrifying experts like the Mo gods. What level of Jinji could do that? Mo did not have Jinji that could suppress people at the level of marshals and Mo gods. If he had a year or more, he might be able to create one, but there was no time for him to think. Would Golden Crow Camp have such a powerful large-scale Jinji? Mo muttered inside. The present Golden Crow Camp was hundreds of times as large as in the past. Because of their rapid expansion, their original site was unable to hold so many people. The two masters found an intermediate-sized cloud island to be the base for Golden Crow Camp. This island was renamed Golden Crow Cloud Island. Golden Crow Cloud Island was the most famous center for seals, forging, and Mo weapons in Cloud Sea Jie. Along with the return of Lil Miss and Bihan, Cloud Sea Jie's rate of expansion rapidly increased. With almost an unstoppable presence, they took dozens of Jie in one push. Among those were Xiuzhe, Mo, and Yao Jies. Collectively, this was called Mo Cloud Sea. Mo from Zhui Mo, Cloud Sea for their origin of Cloud Sea Jie. The environment of Golden Crow Cloud Island was outstanding. There was an active volcano was tamed by the Golden Crow Camp using a fire formation that was hundreds of li long. They had also asked the Mist People to find some astounding high-quality cold caves under the mountain range of the thick Cloud Sea. The previous low-level members of Golden Crow Camp were now all in high positions and were influential people. Wei Qingbin started his daily task like usual. His composed face did not have the past wariness and youth. Wei Qingbin, who had been skilled in making miniature Jinji, was deeply trusted by the two masters. In these years, he had worked tirelessly. Adding to the seal formations and Mo matrices in the Pu Wei library, his present skill level would be that of a grandmaster if he was outside Golden Crow Camp. But he was willing to stay in the heavily guarded Golden Crow Camp. Other than his research on the topics that interested him every day, the time that he anticipated the most was the reflections that Darren would send through the 10-finger prison occasionally. What Darren sent was the greatest secret in Golden Crow Camp. Other than the core members that could read them, they were not open to outsiders. And Wei Qingbin was responsible for receiving them and immediately organizing them. Wei Qingbin liked staying here, mostly because he could see the reflections first. For this duty, he had defeated some strong competitors to obtain this coveted position. Just like usual, what Darren had learned was passed over. He methodically imprinted the contents using high-level jade scrolls. Like he was savoring delicious food, he read word by word and didn't bear to finish reading. However, even the longest content would be finished at some point. But when Wei Qingbin reached the end, he froze. Darren required a large-scale jinji. He only reacted after a long few moments. Without a second word, he sent out 2 paper cranes to inform the 2 masters. In a short amount of time, all the core members of Golden Crow Camp were gathered in one hall. Everyone was discussing the meaning of Darren's words. Of course, Darren's meaning was very simple. Everyone was just very curious, was Darren going to build a city again? In the preliminary battle strategies of Cloud Siege, defense had been the most important, so Golden Crow Camp had invested great amounts of energy and resources into that. The 2 masters saw more from Zhuo Mo's words, the stronger, the better. This was Darren's focus. The strongest. The 2 exchanged a look. Sun Bao said gravely, "How about that set?" The entire place immediately became silent. Everyone knew which set Master Sun Bao was talking about. Many people acted to speak but everyone still remained silent. That set. Chapter 719, That set of Jinji. Everyone in Golden Crow Camp knew of the set of Jinji that Master Sun Bao spoke of. Influenced by their initial expansion strategy, the study of Jinji had always been popular on the island. At that time Guard Camp had been having their Mo matrices engraved and activating bloodlines, meaning this was the time when the study of Mo matrices had been the most popular as well. A person who usually was not very eye-catching suddenly suggested a crazy idea. Use seal scripts as the structure and fill it with Mo matrices. Many people had been studying the Jinji of the Mo, especially the large amounts of valuable Jinji that Pu Yao and Wei had provided. That had broadened the vision of Golden Crow Camp. However, no one had thought of merging the 2 together. This person had actually found an outstanding seal script framework. So when he threw out his idea, it had attracted almost everyone in the camp. Interested, they had started to help him perfect this extra-large Jinji. The creation of large-scale Jinji was an extremely complex and vast work. It was made from countless little seal formations. This number might be 100,000, it might be 1,000,000. A person alone, even if it was an expert like Zhuo Mo, would need many years to create something like this. Yet when all of Golden Crow Camp started to work with the 2 masters managing, their progress was rapid. After spending 2 months of time, a super Jinji of unprecedented complexity and size finally took form. Because it had been created by everyone, and their preferences and skills had been different, it was possible to see the influence of a number of styles. However, its main framework was outstanding, and it was balanced. After the Jinji was finished, all of the camp was stunned by this Jinji. Theoretically, its power surpassed any kind of Jinji they knew of. This astounding conclusion excited the entire camp. Everyone agreed to actually create this Jinji yet and at that time. There were many places that needed Jinji that they could use this at, but they quickly reached an obstacle. They found that the difficulty in forging the core seal formation far surpassed their abilities. No matter what they tried, they could not realize this fanciful dream. After working multiple months on it, and not having success, this Jinji was naturally placed to the side. Darren wanted the most powerful Jinji. Sun Bao's first thought was this Jinji. This basically is not realistic, someone objected. But when they finished speaking, someone argued, we can't do it, but it doesn't mean that Darren cannot. People thought, yes, Darren was a freak that built a city with only his own power. Maybe this thing could finally be realized on Darren's hands. Pass this to Darren, and let Darren decide if he will use it or not. In the end, it was Master Ji Wei that made the decision. Master Sun Bao nodded and agreed. This set of Jinji doesn't have a name, everyone, give it a name. Monkey Ming, you thought of the concept for the Jinji, give it a name, someone shouted from within the crowd. It caused a roar of laughter. Monkey Ming's true name was Ming Guan Shan, but because he was short and thin, people called him Monkey Ming and he did not object. Monkey Ming's face flushed bright red. He stood up and said, everyone created this together. Ho, Brother Ming is trying to deflect the responsibility, as long as you don't call it Ming Gu Jinji, it's all fine. Another person teased and everyone laughed. Even Master Ji Wei smiled. This Jinji came from your creativity, you should name it, do not refuse. Then someone shouted, but it has to be domineering and impressive. Monkey Ming did not refuse. He tilted his head and thought for a while before he said embarrassedly, then it will be called the King's Forbidden Firmament. King's Forbidden Firmament. How is it? Have you enjoyed your days? Feng Xinz had a friendly smile on his face. Qinghua Shui bowed slightly. Many thanks, Darren, for indulging me. Feng Xinz looked at the composed Qinghua Shui. A hint of admiration couldn't help but flash through his eyes. This really was a woman that could keep calm. Yet this type of woman was usually hard to deal with. Feng Xinz grimaced inside. After some more time, the Council of Elders will send people over. Do you know why? Feng Xinz said. Angel device raiment. Qinghua Shui was not stupid. She was also around Zuimo and understood the general situation. Yes. Feng Xinz took a deep breath. He decided to be honest. The angel device raiment is a pseudo-Shin device, and in this era, up until now it is the first creation that is so close to a Shin device. It is very important to us. Looking at Qinghua Shui who only smiled and didn't respond, Feng Xinz felt a headache coming. I hope that you can help us. If you can give us aid, the Blue Flower family will receive a higher status among the Yao, and your brother will be able to receive the later stages of the Yao art he is studying, Feng Xinz said. Feng Xinz smiled slightly. My brother's talents are limited, even if he has the knowledge, it will be difficult for him to advance. With his personality, this kind of calm and ordinary life is the best for him. As to the Qinghua family, my family is a branch family, and have never refused our duty to the main family. I have heard a saying, the power that one enjoys should be paired with the appropriate responsibilities. Feng Xinz's admiration rose. Yes, power and responsibility should be equal. Then have the other people of the Blue Flower worry about that. However, I hope that, when it does not harm Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai, you can give us some conveniences. Qinghua Shui bowed and said, many thanks for your understanding. Pay attention to your safety. It will not be peaceful in the next while, Feng Xinz reminded. Qinghua Shui nodded. I need to return. Finishing, she bid farewell to Feng Xinz, turned and walked inside. Returning to the inner compound, worry finally came up into her eyes. She knew Xiao Yunhai's identity, and knew that if his identity was exposed, it would be terrible. Focused on her thoughts, she did not notice her surroundings. When she noticed there was someone in front of her, she seemed to wake up from a dream. She lifted her head and saw Xiao Mo Gu gazing at her. Qinghua Shui was strangely alarmed but she quickly recovered her calm. She bowed and said, Darren. Zuimo waved his hand and set up Jinji around to stop people from eavesdropping. After doing this, he finally spoke. Hey, we only fought once in the past, you don't have to chase me all the way here. Qinghua Shui stilled. She knew that Xiao Mo Gu recognized her. She smiled. I'm just curious about you. Curious? Zuimo felt this explanation was too, he didn't know how to describe it. He asked helplessly, because of curiosity, you ran to the Mo territories. I had nothing else to do, Qinghua Shui said in a deliberately relaxed tone. Sui Mo covered his forehead and sighed sorrowfully. He was completely defeated by this invincible reason. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Don't you know how dangerous? Will you? Sui Mo's expression froze on his face. A moment later, he snorted coldly and said, maybe. Do you know Guest's nickname in the past? They called me the Bloody Hand Butcher. If I haven't killed 10,000, I've killed at least 8,000. Qinghua Shui listened with a small smile and didn't interrupt. Was this woman's mind rusty? Sui Mo felt for the first time that he didn't know how to keep talking. He shook his head and decided to put this problem to the side. From his observations in the past few days, this woman's mind wasn't normal, but she was still a reliable person. Since you have come, Ji will not waste labor. Sui Mo muttered, go to the 10-finger prison, someone will find you. 10-finger prison. Someone will find her. Qinghua Shui was slightly puzzled but she didn't ask. She nodded briskly. All right. Sui Mo was completely defeated. This girl was not normal, she didn't even ask. If the angel device raiment caused the entire world to have currents flowing under the surface, then the hot tide caused by the Earth Mo weapons was something that every person could feel. If one had to say who was in the worst mood right now, it was the merchants of Netherspring Jia. For them, the reverse shadow soul silkgrass was rare, but they had 1 or 2 in stock. But Buzhou City was many jia away and they could only stare. Those were Earth Mo weapons. When Chuan traded for the clearly chakrams, people felt even more regret. At this time, inside a sky shark, a yellow-faced man stood silently in the corner. His appearance was ordinary, and his presence was not very strong, but his back was straight and his spirit could not be disguised. If Sui Mo was here and saw this figure, he would definitely blurt out eldest Xixiao. Wei Sheng. When the news that one could use reverse shadow soul silkgrass to trade for Earth Mo weapons spread, Wei Sheng instantly concluded that Xiao Yunhai was Sui Mo. He did not hesitate. After disguising himself, he started to travel day and night towards Buzhou City. Fighting in order to elevate himself had caused him to become a pond brimming with water. The content concerning Shen power that Sui Mo had sent him using paper cranes was the hand that brushed away the clouds and mist to show him a completely new path of the sword. On his journey, he had synthesized Sui Mo's knowledge, and comprehended a new method to use his mind to refine the god-killing blood sword. His presence became even more concealed, his sword essence more ethereal and his past sharp edges had dissipated. He had gotten onto a sky shark. This way, he had more time to comprehend and meditate. While he could only just stand and there wasn't a place to sit, he quickly adjusted. If people in the surroundings noticed him, they would find to their surprise that Wei Sheng's presence was becoming even more ordinary. Even his spirit became fainter. This sky shark passed through many stops with people getting on and off. However, there were more getting on than getting off. The already tight quarters became even more crowded. While there were Mo matrices that filtered the air, it was still crowded and humid inside. Sound of complaints occasionally sounded. Wei Sheng leaned against the way, his eyes half-lidded as though he was asleep. Suddenly, an imperceptible light flashed across his half-lidded eyes but then disappeared. Several sharp gazes swept across him and he didn't seem to detect them. The other's gaze quickly moved away from him. Chapter 720, Trembling in Fear, King's Forbidden Firmament. Sui Mo was astounded when he received it. He was skilled and was immediately sucked into the unique framework. His skill was far beyond those of Golden Crow Camp and he quickly concluded that constructing this Jinji was plausible and extremely powerful. Even he didn't know how strong it would be. Sui Mo swept across, reading multiple lines at once. Just at a glance, he could know where there were mistakes in the details. Other than several extremely small flaws, there were actually no major mistakes in such a complex Jinji. This astounded Zuomo. It had to be said that even those famous Jinji would usually have several weaknesses, but these weaknesses were just unknown. From Zuomo's perspective, King's Forbidden Firmament was a super Jinji that was almost close to perfect. However, he could only know how powerful this novel structure that merged seal scripts and MO matrices together once he made the Jinji. An obstacle that was unsurpassable to Golden Crow Camp was not a problem at all for Zuomo, who had the Sun Shin Fire. The King's Forbidden Firmament deeply attracted him. He was extremely curious about its power. Without almost any hesitation, Zuomo started to forge. After making the Angel Device Raiment and the 4 Earth MO weapons, Zuomo's skill had almost reached the point of perfection. Not just in the MO territories, even in the Shouja realms, his forging skill would not be lacking in comparison to those forging masters. He had enough materials and countless treasures. The strong feeling of danger caused Zuomo to forget to rest and eat. Ian felt his heart beat wildly. Grandmaster Xiao Yunhai suddenly requested a terrifying list of materials. The types of materials on it were 10 times greater than last time. What did Grandmaster want to do? Did he want to forge Earth MO weapons again? Even a person as experienced as Ian couldn't help but inhale when he thought of this. When the 4 Earth MO weapons had appeared, Ian had been extremely excited. The amount of attention from all of the MO territories had caused him to see the glorious future of Rare Artifacts Hall. However, he smelt strong danger from the undercurrents caused by the Angel Device Raiment. As more and more people came to Buzhou City, he became even more anxious. Even the arrogant Tang family was docilely curled up by the side. Their battalion was stationed outside the city, but they didn't dare to send them inside. Even he knew that there were at least 3 martial levels in the city, and this number was increasing. Any martial would be enough to wipe all of Buzhou City from the map. In a fight between 2 martials, everything within 1,000 li would be flattened. If martials were in melee battle. Ian shook. He had put away Blue Horsefly a long time ago. Right now, he only hoped to get Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass from the 2 MO weapons and have the gradually uncontrollably situation cool down. Worried that the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass would excite Grandmaster, he had concealed the news that they had gotten 1 Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass. He was waiting for the last 2 Earth MO weapons to be exchanged before he presented them to Grandmaster together. If Grandmaster saw the Reverse Shadow Soul Silkgrass, was excited, and started to forge Earth MO weapons again. When the worried Ian saw the materials list that Zuomo had handed, his expression changed. 10 times the previous amount of materials. With Grandmaster's skill, how many Earth MO weapons would it be? Was Grandmaster crazy? Did he want to become a wholesale supplier of Earth MO weapons? Ian, who had hurried to persuade Zuomo to do otherwise, was stopped by Tsing Lianer. Zuomo was forging the core parts of the King's Forbidden Firmament, and could not be disturbed. Ian immediately felt his head swell and didn't know whether to advance or flee. If he did not see Grandmaster, he could not persuade him otherwise. Also, Grandmaster had told him to prepare the materials at the fastest possible speed. If Grandmaster came out, and saw that the materials were not be prepared, it would be terrible. No matter what, Ian did not dare to offend Zuomo now. Ian decided to not care. If the sky fell, it would crush the tallest first. It was correct to first pander to Grandmaster. Returning to Rare Artifacts Hall, he had his subordinates start to prepare materials. There were no walls without holes in the world. Rare Artifacts Hall was the focus of attention by many, and the movement of so much materials could not be concealed. Grandmaster was going to forge Earth MO weapons again. The news quickly spread as though it had wings. After flying for 3 days and nights, the Sky Shark finally stopped. It needed to rest for an entire day. The passengers who had been suffocated inside the Sky Shark charged out like a flood and breathed in the fresh air outside. The merchants that had been waiting by the side immediately came over and warmly called at the customers. Wei Sheng unnoticeably moved away from the merchants. He carefully followed behind that group of people along with the flow of people moving. There was no expression on his face, and there was only an occasional flash of cold that would flash through his eyes. Kunlun Sword Xiu. Those people were Kunlun Sword Xiu. Wei Sheng was almost unusually sensitive to sword essence. While the others were disguised, there wasn't any slip-up, and their presences were concealed, they would not expect someone would be able to see sword essence so clearly. Detecting the unique Kunlun sword essence on their bodies, Wei Sheng's murderousness rose. The individuals were strong, and should be inner sect members of Kunlun. Kunlun inner sect members on this sky shark that was only going to Buzhou City. Then their target was definitely Zhuo City. Wei Sheng suppressed the murderousness he felt and decided to first investigate thoroughly. Kunlun definitely wouldn't make such a major move for a few Earth MO weapons, they definitely had a goal unknown to others. They really are country bumpkins, just a few Earth MO weapons is enough to excite them to this. Hua Shan couldn't resist complaining. There are too many people inside, it is smelly and stuffy, so irritating. Jean Ran comforted her, Shimmy, hold on for a few more days, when we meet up with Su Shishu at Buzhou City, it will not be so difficult. Why didn't eldest Xixiang come this time? When Hua Shan mentioned Lin Qian, her eyes became full of admiration. If eldest Xixiang had come, that would be great, it has been so long since we saw eldest Xixiang. Jean Ran grimaced inside. He liked Hua Shan but Hua Shan admired eldest Xixiang Lin Qian. It was difficult to feel jealous of eldest Xixiang who was also his idol. In the sect, the great majority of female Xiu admired eldest Xixiang. The heavily bearded middle-aged person who had been silent all this time suddenly spoke, your eldest Xixiang has other duties, he is working much harder. The two immediately closed their mouths. The middle-aged person was their Shishu Lei Yi. Lei Yi Shishu was one step into Fanshu. And if it wasn't that the mission this time was too important, the sect definitely would not have sent Lei Yi Shishu. While Jean Ran and Hua Shan also had Yunying cultivation, Lei Yi Shishu was multiple times stronger than them. More important than our mission this time? Hua Shan couldn't resist asking. Jean Ran was also curious. He knew that for this mission, the sect had sent out 2 Fanshu Shishu, and 7 Shishu that were close to Fanshu. However, the death of the Xian Kong Temple Elder Corps meant that Kunlun did not dare to slack off in this mission. Lei Yi glanced at her and said coldly, you have forgotten the sect rules. What you can ask, and what you cannot ask, don't you know? Hua Shan's face immediately paled and she trembled. Jean Ran at the side also felt intimidated. Suddenly, Lei Yi's eyes widened. Friend, stop sneaking and introduce yourself. Wei Sheng who was in the shadows grimaced inside. He was devout towards the sword and the sword oath he had taken was deeply engraved into his mind. When he saw the sword Xiu of Kunlun, the sword oath would appear in his mind and his murderousness would unconsciously leak out. However, since the other had found him, he would not hide. He held the blood sword as he walked out of the shadows. Wei Sheng. Jean Ran's expression changed dramatically as he exclaimed. Hua Shan heard this and paled. Among those wanted by Kunlun, Wei Sheng was among the top. His name among the younger generation was extremely well known as eldest Xixiang Lin Qian praised him. Many disciples did not accept this. Wukong Sword Sect. That obscure primitive sect. They had never even heard of it. But no matter if it was out of wariness or competitiveness, Wei Sheng's reputation was known among the younger Kunlun disciples. Lei Yi slowly said, so you are Wei Sheng. His expression was cold. As though he was looking down at an ant, he said indifferently, since we encountered you, today is the day you die. Hearing this, Wei Sheng raised the god-killing blood sword in his hand and bared his teeth. He said loudly, this is what I want to say to you. All of you, come at me together. Jean ran and Hua Shan stilled. They hadn't thought that Wei Sheng would be so arrogant. Lei Yi's murderousness burned in his eyes. He snorted coldly, "You don't know your limits." He didn't take out his sword and just pointed his fingers at Wei Sheng. Hiss crack. In a flash, countless dancing electrical snakes erupted from his hands. The blinding light caused one's vision to turn white for a moment. Almost in a blink, the lightning reached a terrifying level. The ground underneath his feet silently turned to dust. Lightning. A shout with a unique rhythm, the light suddenly exploded. The silver bright light caused Wei Sheng's vision to turn white. An irregularly shaped lightning bolt that was the thickness of an arm suddenly shot out of his finger, tore apart the air, and headed straight at Wei Sheng. Boom! The deep thunder spread. The air between the two was taken over by the lightning in that moment. There was nothing faster than lightning. Before Wei Sheng could block, the curving lightning was almost a hand length from his hand. He could clearly feel the destructive power contained in this lightning sword energy. If he was struck, he would immediately turn to dust. At this moment of life and death, Wei Sheng's mind was unusually clear. The god-killing blood sword in his hand felt a threat and the blood light erupted. Wei Sheng swung it almost without any thought. The small amount of Shen power that he had managed to form inside his body furiously flooded towards the god-killing blood sword with all of his Ling power. Chapter 721 Swear by the sword. Wei Sheng's body shook, the air around him immediately turned blood red, marks of blood appearing on the body of the god-killing blood sword. A thick killing presence swept out. A blood-red curtain materialized with the sword swing. The thick lightning sword energy smashed against the blood curtain with the destructive power of nature. The blood curtain lit up. Howls of wild beasts roared from within, and threads of blood appeared on the blood-red curtain. Lei Yi's expression changed slightly. Both the blood curtain and the blood sword emanated a strong and savage presence. Lei Yi knew that people who cultivated sword scriptures like this would have their minds corroded over time to become bloodthirsty and cruel. This kind of sword xiu was extremely dangerous. They didn't need any reason to kill people, and were true killing madmen. However, those that cultivated a killing sword would have difficulty advancing the further they got. They easily got lost in the bloodlust of killing and would walk to their own destruction in the end. Yet when he saw Wei Sheng clearly just now, under that terrifying curtain of blood, Wei Sheng's eyes were filled with devotion to the sword, and his attachment to his belief. Even his presence was clear and honest without any hint of the insanity. With just a glance, Lei Yi detected Wei Sheng's stone-hard determination. In a flash, he thought of Lin Qian, and unconsciously compared the two. Lin Qian was much better than this boy. Lei Yi instinctively thought this, but at this moment, his gaze met Wei Sheng's gaze. Behind the curtain of blood, there seemed to be something burning in that pair of eyes. Was it belief? Or stubbornness? It burned so hot, so determined, without any qualms or concerns. Even the thick blood curtain could not hide it. Lin Qian was much better than this boy, but in terms of attachment to the sword, he was slightly lacking. Lei Yi jumped in fright at the conclusion he had just made. How was it possible? The two shouldn't be able to be compared at all. Who was Lin Qian? He was the disciple with the most outstanding in talent and personality from hundreds of thousands of Kunlun disciples. He received the best mentorship, he was hardworking and never slacked off, he was born noble. Wei Sheng was from a rural little sect, starting as a low sword servant, but all of these thoughts flashed by like lightning. Lei Yi was paralyzed in shock at his own thoughts. This boy could not be left alive. This thought exploded like thunder in his mind. Killing intent immediately filled his entire body. Countless little bolts of lightning swam around his eyes. His hair danced in the wind. Lightning shrouded his body, and his presence reached a peak. At this moment, he didn't have any cares about exposing his identity. There was only one person in Lei Yi's eyes, only one thought. No matter how, no matter the price he had to pay, this boy had to die. Blocking the other's strike, the god-killing blood sword in Wei Xing's hand immediately became excited. It rang and hummed in Wei Xing's hand and tried to break free of his grip. Wei Xing's hand seemed to be forged from steel and didn't move a sliver. The battle spirit in his eyes burned even hotter. Gripping the god-killing blood sword, Wei Xing's body bowed slightly, curling inward into a ball. However, his slightly raised face was unparalleled in its determination. "Swear, by the sword." The words came from deep within his chest, spoken with great confidence and a steely determination. It was like a hammer smashing against their minds. The ringing of the god-killing blood sword in Wei Xing's hand suddenly stopped. As the last word was said, Wei Xing's sword was slowly swung as though it was thousands of caddies heavy. The marks of blood on the sword seemed to be attracted by a great force, floating up from the sword and slowly spinning around the blade. Lei Yi felt extreme danger. The lightning energy in his eyes grew. A silver and uniquely shaped flying sword appeared in front of him. This flying sword seemed to be a section of a lightning bolt, about 1 zhang long and irregularly shaped. There were many splits like branches of a tree, it twisted and turned. It was completely silver, and the material that it was made from was unknown. Lei Yi's famed flying sword, Sky Lightning Branch. When the Sky Lightning Branch was pointed to the sky, the cloud layer within hundreds of li suddenly gathered towards the space above his head like an avalanche. In a moment, there were black clouds gathered above Lei Yi's head that stretched endlessly. The sky immediately became as dark as night. Hiss crack. The sky suddenly lit up with a twisted and burning bolt of lightning. The lightning landed on the Sky Lightning Branch, and the sword lit up. This was just a start. As the lightning continued to strike the Sky Lightning Branch, it became almost as bright as the sun. An astounding amount of lightning surrounded it. The lightning accumulated in the cloud layer within hundreds of li all gathered on it. The Sky Lightning Branch seemed to be alive as it moved within a thick ball of lightning. The entire city was disturbed by such a great noise. "Stop," Mo shouted angrily, "are you crazy? Careful, they are Xiuzhe." Lei Yi ignored them. A cold smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. His eyes that flashed with lightning were icy. Some Mo tried to come closer. Several bolts of lightning suddenly shot out of the gathering ball of lightning and struck them. The lightning flashed, and there was nothing left where the people had been floating there. The other Mo all changed expression. No one dared to come close. Jin Ran and Hua Shan looked excitedly at Lei Yi Shixu. While they had known that Lei Yi Shixu was unfathomably powerful, they were still greatly amazed when they saw it with their own eyes. Lei Yi was like a lightning god on earth. He looked on coolly, his index and middle finger pointing out together. His eyes were wide as he shouted, "Die!" The Sky Lightning Branch within the ball of lightning suddenly turned into an unusually thick bolt of lightning that dove towards Wei Xing with an unstoppable presence. The lightning was like a great enormous silver sword with a terrifying presence as it split the sky. The blinding silver light illuminated the world, reflected in countless pairs of terrified eyes. The power of nature amazed everyone. This sword strike contained the power of the lightning in the world. People were unable to make out if it was lightning or sword essence. Yet in this patch of silver-white lightning, a blood curtain seemed to slowly, yet determinately spread. The deep voice from within the blood curtain was so clear, and so determined. Even in front of the power of nature, it did not submit at all, and did not tremble. By the offering of Kunlun blood. By the offering of Kunlun blood. Lei Yi's eyes turned even colder. All the Ling power in his blood flooded out without any regard for consequences. The Sky Lightning Branch at the tip of that curving twisted lightning bolt trembled. The surrounding lightning became even denser. It pierced the air, and shot at Wei Xing at a speed hard to detect with the naked eye. A hint of joy flashed across Lei Yi's cold eyes. An indescribable understanding appeared in his mind. With this sword strike, he had touched Fanshu, and touched the fundamental rules of the world. His cultivation that had not improved for a long time broke through at this time. He was so happy he wanted to howl at the sky. At this time, he suddenly saw out of the corner of his eyes an unusually bright and thin bloodline follow the path of Wei Xing's sword strike. It penetrated the blood curtain and headed straight for the lightning striking down out of the sky. The bloodline wasn't any slower than Lei Yi's strike. Lei Yi's eyes widened. How was that possible? Compared to the thick lightning created by the sky lightning branch, the bloodline was so thin it was almost overlooked. Compared to the astoundingly destructive presence of the sky lightning branch, the thin line of blood didn't have any presence. It appeared in front of the sky lightning branch seemingly without any warning. Both attacks were extremely fast, so fast that both sides could not react at all. Hiss! A strange dissonant howl rang out. The bloodline was like an extremely sharp knife that cut across tofu. The strangely shaped and seemingly alive flying sword, sky lightning branch, which caused the thick lightning and changed the color of the sky, was split apart by this nondescript thin line of blood. Split into two. The bloodline that sliced through the lightning disappeared from Lei Yi's vision. Before he could react, he suddenly felt as though a slippery thing flashed through his mind. He had never felt something so strange. A ruler-straight mark appeared on the small embryo that had started to form in his body. An embryo that now faded into nothingness. Lei Yi's eyes went wide. His expression was slightly puzzled. An extremely small and straight mark of blood slowly appeared on his face and body. This. The puzzlement in Lei Yi's eyes gradually turned into great terror. This was Shen power. The blood which contained Ling power sprouted from that blood mark that traversed his body. His vision turned bloody red. His remaining Ling power could feel the presence of his two nearby disciples who were now just like him. Bewildered, endless darkness came at him. He seemed to hear a noise and then he lost consciousness. What he didn't know was that their fresh blood had turned into 3 blood arrows that was absorbed by the god-killing blood sword. The world was covered by silver light. The lightning that lost control was a savage power. It exploded. The bright light forced people's eyes closed. All of their senses were useless in front of such a savage explosion. Everyone's minds were blank and they were like branches swept up in a flood. Wei Xing's face was pale and bloodless. He held the god-killing blood sword with a death grip and allowed it to carry him among the turbulence. In the moment he touched ground, his legs gave out and he almost fell over. After killing such a strong enemy, there was no joy on his face. There was faint sorrow in his mind. However, his mind was strong and he quickly broke free of his sorrow. There was a bitter smile on his face. This god-killing blood sword was powerful, but with his power, he only had enough for one strike. After that one strike, he would be exhausted and wouldn't have any power to fight back. That strike just now didn't just take all the Ling and Shen power in his body, it had also used almost 1/5 of the blood in his body. Wei Xing had never cultivated a Mo physique. His body was not on a level comparable with Sui Mo. 1/5 of all his blood was enough to almost kill him. Right now, he had no power, and he didn't know when he could recover. For Xiohe, the blood in their bodies was their purest source of power. If it was used it was difficult to recover. Shaking his head, Wei Xing did not feel any regret. The sword oath he had vowed was set in his heart. Not just 1/5 of his blood, even if he lost his life, he would not regret it at all. However, he could not go on like this to Buzhou City. Wouldn't he become a burden to Shidi? At this time, the god-killing blood sword in his hand suddenly moved and started to pull him down into the ground. Wei Xing was shocked. He felt as though he was sinking into water without any sluggishness, and quickly sank down into the earth. The god-killing blood sword continued to pull him downwards. Chapter 722, Progress Deep Underground. Wei Xing's eyes were tightly closed and his face was as white as paper. Suddenly, a thread of blood came out of the body of the god-killing blood sword. The blood flow quickly increased. With the streams of blood coming off the sword, it appeared as though it was just pulled out of a pool of blood. The viscous blood seemed to be alive as it inched along the sword, climbing onto Wei Xing's sword hand, and up onto his arm. Blood continued to come out of the god-killing blood sword, and then visibly seeped into Wei Xing's body. Color began returning to Wei Xing's white face. In the earth, Wei Xing did not give off any presence. There were thousands of parts piled up in mountains around Zhuemo, each one a different shape and design. He didn't rest, eat, or drink for 5 whole days, one part after another forming in his hand and then being thrown onto the mountainous pile next to him. Even with Zhuemo's strong emo physique, his body showed clear signs of weariness and exhaustion. However, the Sunshin fire in front of him was unusually steady and didn't tremble at all. Zhuemo's astounding forging skill was perfectly displayed. Another part was finished. He stopped and shoved a handful of Lingdan into his mouth. He carefully felt Ling power surge into his dried channels. The Sun Seed was best for recovering Shin power, but Zhuemo couldn't bear to use them. But he had a huge pile of Lingdan in his ring, and he could waste them as he wished. With every Sun Seed used of his finite supply, there would be one less. Taking the time while his Ling power was recovering, he examined the King's Forbidden Firmament again. The Jinji that Golden Crow Camp had designed naturally leaned more toward seal formations, and the King's Forbidden Firmament was not an exception. While it used MO matrices, it was still mostly seal scripts. The seal scripts made up 7/10 and the MO matrices 3/10 of the Jinji. Zhuemo's spell level had been exercised greatly by the astounding number of things forged, and adding on the aid of the Gravestone Oath, Zhuemo's weakest skill, spells, had improved rapidly. Right now, it had reached the 2nd class and was the same as his Yao arts. After his greatest shortcoming was amended, his power had quickly increased. According to PUS system, Zhuemo's present Shin power level was intermediate earth level, and his Shin technique was 2nd class. However, it was far behind the Rhinoceros MO God. The Rhinoceros MO God's Shin power level was late earth level, and his Shin technique was 1st class. If he didn't have the little MO treasure cup, Zhuemo could not even hope to match the Rhinoceros MO God. But after his Shin technique reached 2nd class, Zhuemo's forging speed became even faster. His control of Sun Shin fire reached an astounding level. This meant that he would almost never make mistakes. The quality of the parts that he forged using Shin power far surpassed the level that Golden Crow Camp had required in their design. Altogether, there were 18,000 parts. Each part was a work of art, the perfect merging of Mo matrices and seal scripts giving off an unique beauty. Zhuemo found after forging these parts that the effect of Shin power in forging was even more outstanding. Shin power and Shin fire could almost completely purify the impurities in materials, and inscribe Mo matrices and seal scripts into the material. This kind of inscription was completely different from Ling power and was closer to a natural growth. Other than the astounding rate of Shin power expenditure, Zhuemo was overjoyed at its effects. Zhuemo used a new forging method for all the core parts. He called it the Shin forging method. Of the 18,000 parts, he forged 81 using the Shin forging method. What was another happy surprise to Zhuemo was that he found the Shin forging method could greatly increase the skill of Shin techniques. The skill level of Shin techniques was determined by the control level of Shin power. Previously, Zhuemo was only able to increase his Shin technique power through increasing his 3 powers. With the Shin forging method, he could use it to increase his Shin technique and control for multiplied effects. However, Zhuemo had tested. Not all materials could be used with the Shin forging method. Materials under 6th grade would turn to ash when the Shin forging method was used. Mo found several kinds of patterns from the gold leaf that were close to Mo matrices and seal scripts. He called them shin-glyphs. He had used one on the angel device raiment, and it had been the simplest one. Mo had now mastered 2 shin-glyphs. Other than the one he had used on the angel device raiment, he had one other shin-glyph. Materials that could support shin-glyphs had to be at least 8th grade. The reason for at least was because Mo had tried with a 7th grade material and then watched as it turned into a pile of ash. He had some 8th grade materials but he didn't bear to use it to experiment. Only now did Mo feel shocked by the grade of the Mo weapon rudiments he had created with the weapon layer craftsmanship. They were able to tolerate shin-glyphs, didn't mean they were at least 8th grade. This caused Mo to be filled with interest about the weapon layering craftsmanship. While general-level Mo weapons were expensive, but as long as it was a Mo weapon, it could be bought. But 8th grade materials were not things that could be bought with Mabe. It definitely was a profitable business to use general-level Mo weapons to convert to 8th grade materials. Little Mo Go suppressed his urges to do business. He felt the recovering Shin power turn into the 3 powers and then slowly into Shin power. He once again went back to forging. 10 whole days. When the last part was finished, Mo looked at the mountain of parts in front of him with a feeling of accomplishment. 18,000 parts. He had finished in 10 days. While he had finished all the required parts, he did not set up the Jinji immediately. He shoved a great number of Lingdan into his mouth and entered meditation. Only he would dare to use so many Lingdan at once. If it was a Shouja, their Ling channels would rupture and explode. Mo's Mo physique was powerful, and his channels were much stronger than other Shouja. His Ling power could also turn into other powers and reduce the stress on his channels. 3 days later, he opened his eyes again. The faint Great Day matrices appeared on his eyes with an indescribable aura. All of the power in his body, and his tired mind had recovered to peak condition. Standing up, he waved his hand lightly and the mountain of parts in front of him disappeared into the air. Ian was very happy when Grandmaster summoned him immediately after leaving seclusion. This showed that Grandmaster trusted him, but when he learned that Grandmaster had not forged Earth Mo weapons, Ian was slightly disappointed. If Grandmaster forged Earth Mo weapons, he could pick 2 for free. However, he was more relieved. As long as there were no more Earth Mo weapons, the situation which was already so tense that a spark could ignite it would not be further exacerbated. Ian felt fear at the dangerous situation of Buzhou City. But Grandmaster's next words caused him to pale and almost jump up. Grandmaster! Please do not. The present Buzhou City is a barrel of dynamite, it might explode at any movement. If you leave the city now, Ian wanted to persuade Mo away. Mo knew his worry and comforted, "It's fine, we will be careful and no one will know. You are familiar with the region, do you know any place nearby that has a river, mountain, and earth fire?" Ian's expression was frantic as he opened his mouth to speak. Mo saw his expression and waved his hand to stop the other. He said, "Don't persuade me otherwise, I also know it is not safe outside. However, if something happens, can you keep me safe?" "This is relatively safe," Ian said. "Relatively safe?" Mo smirked coldly. "If the marshal comes, is it still safe? If it is 2 marshals, is it still safe? 3. There are at least 5 marshals in the city." Ian broke out in a cold sweat and couldn't think of any counterarguments. Mo waved his hand and said gently, "This cannot be blamed on you. I have to consider the worst-case situation. Is there any place nearby that satisfies my needs?" Ian did not argue further. Since Grandmaster knew, then he definitely had some move that Ian didn't know. He thought for a moment and then his eyes lit up. He said, "About 700 li northwest of Buzhou City, there is a place called the Grave Ghost Mound. It has a river, mountain, and earth fire. However, That place is heavy with Yin energy and ghost fiends frequently appear. It is also not a populous place. Suemo heard this and didn't hesitate. Then we'll go to the grave ghost mound. Ian gritted his teeth and nodded. Grandmaster, please wait for a moment. A short while later, the elite guards of Rare Artifacts Hall finished gathering. Suemo's gaze swept the 70 guards in front of him and nodded inwardly. Rare Artifact Hall was really an old faction with a long history. Just these 70 people represented a considerable amount of power. Especially that guard leader with the indifferent expression, he was martial level. Suemo could not imagine a marshal willing to act as a guard leader for a business. No wonder Rare Artifacts Hall was so confident. They had such an expert, and naturally did not fear. Suemo's gaze swept around. Ague, Tsing Lianer, and Bean Sprout were all here, and only Qinghua Shui was missing. What was that woman doing? Suemo was puzzled and was about to ask Pu Yao when his vision blurred and Qinghua Shui appeared and bowed. Sorry for the wait. The moment that Qinghua Shui appeared, the guard leader's expression changed, and his pupils contracted. Suemo examined Qinghua Shui. His expression did not change, but he was shocked inside. Pu, what did you do to her? Suemo immediately asked Pu Yao in secret. He remembered that Pu Yao had Qinghua Shui go to the 10-finger prison and most likely had passed something to her. However, the increase in her power was so great it was slightly terrifying. Pu Yao was lazy. Nothing major, I coincidentally had a completed, blue flower, on my hands so I gave it to her. Just that. Suemo didn't believe it. Pu Yao said amusedly, the Blue Flower family are a bunch of idiots and wasted such a good seed. Her calmness is shocking, and she is the calmest person I have ever seen. She is born to cultivate the blue flower. Her accumulation is so great you cannot imagine it. However, she didn't have the following parts of the art, so she was stuck at her previous level. Can you imagine it? The previous her compared to when she was 13 hasn't changed much. The Blue Flower family has no eyes. However, if she was not so calm, after being stuck for so many years, she would have exploded a long time ago. That is too exaggerated. Looking at Qinghua Shui, Suemo was still amazed. There was such a freak in the world. Chapter 723, A Snowy Blue Flower. Taking advantage of the cover of darkness, under the protection of the Rare Artifacts Hall guards, the group secretly left the city that night. A journey of 700 li was not far for them. Out of consideration for safety, when they left the city, they suddenly sped up. They did not spare the endurance of their steeds and flew at top speed. The moon and stars were bright, the night wind howled, and the group all had extremely grave expressions. If one had to say who was under the most surveillance in Buzhou City, it was undoubtedly Suemo. While there was a blood pool deep in the compound that led out the city, this did not guarantee that they would not attract any attention. As expected, when they were just 30 li outside of the city, they noticed people trailing them. The guard leader of Rare Artifacts Hall's expression did not change as he said coldly, Team 2, stop them. 7 guards quickly left the ranks and charged towards the enemies following them. Their mission was not to kill the enemy but delay them. The guard leader glanced at Suemo. Seeing Suemo's calm expression, a hint of praise flashed through his eyes. He moved his gaze away and ordered, burning fire medicine. The other guards heard this and each took out a bright red medicinal pellet, then shoved it into the mouths of the steeds under them. The eyes of the steeds immediately filled with blood and their speed doubled. Faint sorrow flashed through the eyes of many guards. These steeds had mostly followed them for many years, and were their companions. The burning blood medicine could activate their greatest potential, but when the effects passed, they would die. The effects of the burning blood medicine was clear. The steeds were of extraordinary quality to start, and fast. Now that their speed doubled, they instantly left the people behind in the dust. Some guards released a breath. The pressure of the mission this time surpassed any of their previous missions. Zhuo Mo and Tseng Lianer exchanged a look of seriousness. Even with their increased speed they had not managed to throw everyone off. There were at least 3 people still following closely behind. Qinghua Shui seemed to detect it as well. She looked at Zhuo Mo. Other people thought that Xiao Yunhai was just Mo weapon master, but she knew that Xiao Yunhai was Xiao Mo Gu. She knew Xiao Mo Gu was strong. Detecting Qinghua Shui's gaze, Zhuo Mo's mouth did not move but his voice passed clearly into her mind. Mind-speech art. Qinghua Shui was slightly shocked. She hadn't thought that Xiao Mo Gu would even know such an obscure Yao art. There are 3 behind us, and when something happens, you will be the first to attack. Pay attention and try to lead them to a place without people. Qinghua Shui imperceptibly nodded. She was intelligent and immediately understood what Zhuo Mo intended. Of all of them, only she could fight without any reservations, so she naturally became the main fighting force. Her mind was calm and restful. She was not excited at all about the battle about to come. If this was any other person, and their power had just skyrocketed, their fighting spirit would most likely be high now. Suddenly, a dangerous shadow appeared in the calm lake of her mind. Qinghua Shui's expression was calm as the fingers on her right hand pointed behind her. The Yao art that had been prepared left her hand was revealed. A blue ray of light flew out of her hand and, like a soft ribbon, circled around and then shot behind her. Blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique. If the Blue family patriarch was here, he would be greatly surprised. The blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique was a secret of the Blue family that only the main branch could learn. Even in the present family, there were less than 5 members that could use this technique, and all of them were elders older than 40 years. Qinghua Shui had a clear understanding of her power and her position. With Zhuo Mo and the others as support behind her, she did not need to hold anything back. At the same time, her left hand rose. There was a blue bat on her wrist. This blue bat looked adorable without any hint of killing energy like a pet. Blue flower bat. The blue bat opened its mouth and gave off a few squeaks. A faint handful of blue light shot out of the blue bat's mouth. Within the area covered by the blue light, a figure appeared. The other hadn't thought that Qinghua Shui's Yao art was so strong. Caught off guard, he was struck. When the blue light touched the body, it turned into a dense blue fire that clung onto the person's body and burned. The other's disguise immediately disappeared and revealed his true appearance. A bright red Ling armor with many places covered in a layer of blue flowers. He looked disheveled. Xiuzhe. The other guards were astounded. While they knew that Xiuzhe had managed to sneak into the Mo territories for the angel device raiment, they hadn't thought that the Xiuzhe would be so daring. Between experts, a misstep in one moment would mean losing the advantage. Just as this Xiuzhe was forced to show himself by the blue light, the blue flower fulfillment wrapping technique silently wrapped onto the other's legs. The thin blue ribbon was unusually strong. Pia, the other's Ling armor at his legs immediately shattered. A furious howl. A blue sword light shot into the sky like a hailstorm. Countless shards of ice spread. The blue light of the blue bat was actually blocked by these shards of ice. The blue flower fulfillment technique that had wrapped around the other was cut into multiple lengths by the sword energy. Zhuo Mo's pupils suddenly shrank, and a strong murderousness spread. Kunlun sword Xiu. What the other cultivated was Kunlun's famous, glacier sword. It used the ancient and ever-frozen glacier as sword essence, and could freeze all. This person's cultivation was close to Fanshu and extremely powerful. While he had lost the advantage at the start, when he attacked, the presence was as different as expected. Qinghua Shui did not think that much. She was not so innocent to think that her 2 Yao arts just now were enough to kill the other. After her 2 Yao arts left her hand, she had begun preparing new Yao arts. Her wrist turned, the blue bat spread its wings and flew into the sky. Countless rays of blue light fell from the body of the blue bat. In the next moment, these thin rays of light formed a blue tower. The blue tower was covered in exquisite patterns. A blue bat stood guard at the top of the tower. Bat Tower. The blue tower moved quickly. Like an enormous metal cage, it even enveloped the shards of ice. The iciness immediately dissipated, and the ice shards inside the tower disappeared at an astounding rate. Lu Han was both shocked and angry. He hadn't thought a single moment of inattention would cause him to end up in such a disadvantageous state. He usually was proud, when had he been left so disheveled before? Also, the enemy was just a little girl. If news of this spread, wouldn't his reputation fall to the floor? For the mission this time, the sect had really bled and sent out numerous experts. When the angel device raiment had appeared in the Mo territories, it meant that Kunlun would not be able to obtain it through conventional methods. If they couldn't trade for it, they could only steal it. In order to not attract attention, the sword show of Kunlun split into groups to sneak into the Mo territories. Lu Han's group arrived the earliest and had been hidden near Buzhou City all this time to search for an opportunity. Out of wariness, he had set up several secret scouting bases outside the city. Tonight, these secret scouts finally became useful. However, he wasn't the only one to set up secret scouts outside of the city. During the pursuit, they had encountered many factions with the same goal. A melee battle had started, a short yet intense one. In the span of a few dozen breaths, almost all of the elite sword shio around him had died. In the Mo territories, Kunlun didn't just lack advantages, they also were in enemy territory. If their identities were exposed, they would be surrounded and attacked by other Mo factions. Lu Han was powerful and didn't lose the target. There were also two people who didn't get left behind like himself. His original intentions had been to sneak close to Xiao Yunhai, capture him, and then use him to control the situation. He hadn't expected that he would be found by Qinghua Shui just as he neared. In the intelligence he received, Qinghua Shui was an insignificant person. While she had fought against the head of the Tang family guards, but in the eyes of Sudafanchu level Xiuzhe, strength of that level wasn't worth a mention. Yet they quickly found the details on Qinghua Shui. Qinghua Shui was born from a branch family of the Blue Flower family. The fact that she had been sent to join the envoy proved that the Blue Flower did not place any importance on her. Everyone had thought that she had appeared by Xiao Yunhai's side because Feng Xinz had gifted her as a maid to Xiao Yunhai. This speculation was appropriate to her status and identity. However, this woman that was thought to be a maid had put him in a sorry state. His first conclusion was that she was a secret piece that Feng Xinz had set down. Yet the time did not allow him to think on this further. The other's Yao arts came constantly like a noose continuously tightening around his neck. The blue light inside the blue tower was multiple times thicker than before. He seemed to have fallen into a bog. Each movement was difficult. Even stranger was that the speed of his Ling power circulation inside his body had started to slow as well. At this time, Lu Han didn't dare to underestimate Qinghua Shui at all. He moved all the Ling power in his body and shouted. The ice soul sword in his body was suddenly thrust into the ground. Snowy white icy frost quickly spread into the surroundings. Then immediately after, the ground around Lu Han started to tremble violently as though something was about to break out. Crack, crack. Cracks appeared on the ground. Countless snowy white and icy sword essences flooded out of the ice cracks. 10,000 sword glacier. The ice swords that erupted from the ground could be counted in the tens of thousands. It was like a ferocious flood of ice swords. The cold edges almost tore the exquisite blue tower to pieces in the blink of an eye. The guard leader's expression changed slightly. Even he couldn't help but reach for his Mo weapon at such a vast and furious sword essence. As expected of a Kunlun sword shio. Yet Qinghua Shui reacted a step ahead of him. She seemed to have expected that the blue tower would not be able to stop the enemy. The blue flowers that were torn up in the ice sword flood suddenly lit up faintly. It was like a group of fireflies flying in the night. The dots were beautiful mixed in the enemy's ice sword flood. Blue firefly pounce. Lu Han suddenly found that the ice sword flood was raging out of his control. He was stunned. There were dots of blue light within the ice sword flood. No matter what method he used, he was unable to remove them. It was these dots of blue light that caused his control of sword essence to falter. He had never seen such a strange Yao art before. He had never heard of the blue flower family having such a move before. Lu Han was astounded. The blue flower had some fame among the Yao, and Kunlun had relatively detailed records of the blue flower technique. After being defeated continuously, Lu Han felt fear. Then he looked at the rare artifacts hall guard leader waiting at the side. He knew that his plan had failed. If they continued to fight, the ambush would become a frontal assault that would not be advantageous to him. He was decisive and did not hesitate to move away and retreat. Qinghua Shui's inexperience in battle showed at this time. She hadn't expected that Lu Han would retreat without any warning. She was a step late in reacting. Just at this time, something suddenly happened. Chapter 724, An unexpected occurrence. Mo's murderous intent was great but he forced it down. It was not a good time to enter the fray now. Yet at this moment, a grey shadow suddenly flashed across his vision, and Mo's expression changed dramatically. A Gui. A Gui seemed to appear out of thin air behind Lu Han. Her hand that flashed with purple energy soundlessly pressed against Lu Han's back. Lu Han did not seem to detect it and continued to sprint forward. The purple handprint on his back created an eerie purple streak of light in the night. He went just 3 more zhang and the purple light continued to corrode Lu Han's body. But Lu Han didn't seem to detect it and flew forward. Patches of purple energy disappeared in the air like leaves swept up by the wind. What disappeared with them was Lu Han's body. Everyone who saw this felt as though an icy wind swept across their hearts and their hairs stood up. The stony-faced rare artifact hall head guard's expression changed. Mo also changed expression at the same time. He thought, this was bad. He didn't know why a Gui suddenly attacked Lu Han. A Gui was functioning on pure instinct, and she definitely had felt something. Had Lu Han in the past? Mo shook his head. This was not the time to think about this. It definitely wasn't possible to conceal a Gui's unexpected attack. There were 2 more people hiding in the shadows that would have seen her. Their identities would be soon exposed. Mo took a deep breath and calmed the shock inside. His mind was peerlessly calm. There wasn't much time left to him. He needed to finish the setup before these people managed to react. Right now, there wasn't enough time to run away. Those that were gathering were the strongest experts in the world. The probability of running away from these people was almost 0. Also, the reverse shadow soul silkgrass was almost here. If he ran away now, all of his efforts would have been for waste. Mo said gravely, "Go, hurry to Grave Ghost Mound." At this time, he did not hide his strength and flew with all his power. A Gui, Tseng Lianer and Qinghua Shui heard this, didn't hesitate and flew at full power. A hint of shock flashed across the face of the rare artifact hall head guard before his expression became indifferent again. "All of you, return first." "Darren." The other guard said panically. "You will not be able to participate in the upcoming battles." Then he leapt off the Mo steed to chase after Mo and the others. The other guards looked at each other. One person quickly said, "We need to hurry back to report to boss." The group did not hesitate and hurriedly returned. Mo looked at the head guard that had caught up to them. He was slightly surprised and said, "You don't have to enter this mess." I will naturally finish what boss has ordered, the head guard said gravely. A hint of admiration flashed through Zhuo eyes. What is sir's name? Qian, the head guard said coolly. Zhuo nodded and didn't speak further. The group focused on traveling. Flying at top speed, they managed to cover 700 li in less than 2 hours. This is the grave ghost mound, Qian said. Without Qian's words, Zhuo would still know they reached their destination. This place was so heavy with yin energy that he could feel it from far away. Zhuo was slightly surprised. Such thick yin energy would not have naturally formed. He could feel the thick death energy mixed within it. He couldn't help but ask, what is the history of this place? Supposedly, during the ancient era, a great battle of over 10 tribes occurred here. Countless warriors fell on this place, and their ghosts were difficult to dissipate and turned into specters and yin fiends. However, that is just a rumor, and there is no evidence, Qian said expressionlessly. Zhuo looked down and murmured to himself, it probably isn't just a rumor. Qian's eyes suddenly lit up. Zhuo did not look at Qian. His gaze swept across the grave ghost mound. This place fulfilled all of his needs. It had mountains, water, and there was the smell of sulfur in the air, which meant that this place had earth fire. The Yin River here had been corroded by the Yin energy for a lengthy amount of time and really was a river of Yin energy now. Speaking just in terms of environment, this place was very suited to setting up the King's Forbidden Firmament. The Yin River was an unexpected surprise and could greatly increase the power of the Jinji. But for some reason, Zhuo felt a thread of anxiousness. Zhuo shook his head and threw the thread of uncertainty behind him. Even if there was something strange here, it could not compare to the immediate and apparent threat from the experts that would soon arrive. Mo Shan Temple, Kunlun, all the Mo marshals, the Yao Council of Elders. There was no need to count all of them, just these few was enough to rob people of courage. Zhuo did not feel any fear at all. Even though a Gui's sudden attack had messed up all of his preparations, he felt relieved of a heavy burden. He no longer needed to be careful, did not need to conceal himself. It was as though he had thrown away all of the chains and qualms weighing him down, and he felt unspeakably relaxed. Thinking about how he was about to fight against the top experts famed in the world, fighting spirit filled his heart and his body with endless strength. To contend against the heroes of the world with just his own power. Just thinking about it caused his blood to boil. So elder, you knew that Xiao Yunhai was Xiao Mo Gu already. The young Mo god had an enchanting smile on his face. He stood there lazily as though he was about to lay down and sleep. The old man that was in front of him grinned to show his missing and yellow teeth. I would never admit that. I'm really curious, elder, what is the relationship between you and Xiao Mo Gu? Relatives, the young Mo god asked with a smile. The old man shook his head, you are wrong, I don't have a good relation with him. Then you are enemies, the young Mo god shook his head. It doesn't appear so. Ha, stop guessing, you won't be able to get it right, the old man said unconcernedly. The scab fragrance isn't something normal. While I don't hope that you will return it to me, but, elder, you have to give an explanation. Otherwise, it will be a great embarrassment to me. The young Mo god spread his hands. The old man grinned and said, this old man didn't break any promise. I said that he was able to force Shin devices. While the angel device raiment isn't a true Shin device, if you get it and study a bit, you may possibly be able to forge your own Shin device. The young Mo god sighed and said, it seems that we will have to fight today. The old man urged, why? Everyone knows each other's power. You alone cannot beat me, if there are 2 of you, then I definitely cannot win. But only if there are 3 of you would I be unable to escape. That's true. It seems that I can only bear the humiliation until they come, the young Mo god tiled his head and said. But we will have to fight no matter what. The old man smiled. You want me to help you delay? While I am very lazy, what can I do? What I won't be able to get, I'm displeased that the turtles behind me still aim for them. The young Emo god's expression was pained. Yes, yes. The old man nodded repeatedly with agreement on his face. Also, you say that I cannot defeat you, am also displeased by this. The young Emo god raised his face and looked directly at the old man. His Shen power rippled. The usual laziness on the handsome face had disappeared and what replaced it was unusual focus. This caused his face to have a light that was eerie and almost something that people could not directly look at. The stone around him seemed to be attracted by an invisible force and slowly floated upwards. Boom! A strong Shen pressure spun around him, and grew stronger as it revolved. It pulled all of the power within dozens of li. It was like a twister that reached directly into the sky. His smile was still enchanting but unusually sharp. There's no way about it. There are many matters in the world that are displeasing, the old man grinned and said. He shook his head and stepped forward. His steps were not heavy, but in the moment he stepped onto the ground, boom, a deep rumble like that of a drum sounded. The ground within 100 li seemed to be stuck, and shook once. A spiderweb of cracks spread more than 7 li with his right foot as the center. The cracks that appeared seemed to reach into the underworld, deep and bottomless. The young Emo god's twister shook. The top part of it suddenly lost control, turned into chaotic turbulence and scattered. The young Emo god's eyes narrowed slightly. The light that came from his narrowed eyes were sharp as blades. A smile spread on his mouth. There are many people that have come. The old man sighed. It seems that we need to show some actual skill. Otherwise, we aren't able to intimidate these people. I dislike doing hard labor. The young Emo gold seemed to say to himself. His eyes lit up with a burning light. The gazes of the two collided in the air and sparks flew. The strength of the power vibrations produced by the fighting of two Shen power experts was like the sun in the dark of the night. Not just the nearby Buzhou city, even Wuxia Mo a few hundred li away clearly felt it. Everyone in Buzhou city was startled away. In this period of time, the undercurrents and the continuously intensifying conflicts had been detected by many of the locals who left Buzhou city long ago. Right now, the majority of people in Buzhou city were outsiders. The remaining were large families such as the Tang family who thought they had the ability to protect themselves. But at such a time, the Tang family were on full guard. How could they not have detected such a great ruckus? Tang Chen's face was pale. The vibrations from the collision outside the city made even he, a marshal, feel his heart jump. Beside him was another middle-aged male. Beside the male was Qin Ming, Zhongwen Tian, and Gongzi Shi who were all standing solemnly. He was Marshal D who had secretly arrived this night. Marshal D's expression was grave, both are using Shen power. The shock on Qin Ming's face was difficult to disguise. All of them were martial experts. Even though they had Earth Mo weapons, they would have to use their full power to reach such a level. Yet the two seemed to be strolling in the park. The power ripples given off as they moved were able to upend an ocean. The youth is one of the three great Mo gods of the Mo Shen temple, he is called Yoshi Yaku, the old man's origins are unknown, Qin Ming said gravely. Marshal Dis gaze swept across the people. Seeing the expression on their faces and how they were clearly intimidated, he suddenly smiled and said, "Wen Tian, if you and old Qin work together, do you have the confidence to fight Yoshi Yaku?" Zhongwen Tian's eyes lit up as he rumbled, "We can fight." The other two people's expressions eased. Yes. Marshal Dis' voice was strong and powerful, adding on old Tang and I, we have 4 marshals, and 4 Earth Mo weapons. If we count this way, that will be 2 Mo gods. We just have 1 less than the Mo Shen temple. In this chaotic situation, we may have a chance. Everyone's confidence increased greatly. Then what do we do now? Tang Chen asked. Wait. Martial Dis expression was at ease. We are not the strongest, and the timing of our action is most crucial. We must be successful on our first attempt. Old Tang, investigate and see what really happened when Xiao Yunhai left the city at night before the Shen Power Expert conflict. We need to keep our eye on Xiao Yunhai, he's the crux of this. Tang Chen did not hesitate. He nodded and said, "All right." Chapter 725, Shen Power Warrior. The grave ghost mound was completely dark. Flying down, everyone felt the air was icy. Even Zui Mo was slightly intimidated. The thickness of the Yin energy in the grave ghost mountain was on a completely different level than what he had felt from when flying. It far surpassed his predictions. "Stay guard and protect me," Zui Mo said. "I probably need about 3 days of time." He had already finished forging all the parts of the King's Forbidden Firmament. While the setup was slightly troublesome, it would not be difficult for Zui Mo. However, he had to first survey the land to prevent an accident from happening in the middle of setup. If any one of the 18,000 parts was damaged, it would damage the power of the Jinji. Even more importantly, he did not have the time to reforge these parts. Qian nodded. Tsing Lianer and Qinghua Shui also stopped. Only a Gui followed beside Zui Mo. Zui Mo didn't know what to do. Sometimes, a Gui would be very obedient, but would sometimes act in surprising ways. It was likely that a Gui's instincts that detected something. Zui Mo realized this and didn't waste words. He pulled a Gui along as he went deeper into the grave ghost mound. His expression became increasingly grave. The Yin energy was even heavier here, almost tangible. The air was a faint gray. The coldness of the surroundings bit into his skin like thorns, and Zui Mo had to channel his great Daimo physique to counteract the Yin energy. A thin layer of gold quickly appeared on his skin. The sun matrix on his forehead started to slowly revolve. Threads of warmth spread through his body and removed the coldness. Zui Mo reached out and grabbed a Gui's hand. The warmth of his hand passed into a Gui's body. A Gui's body tensed and her hand gripped Zui Mo's hand even more tightly. Zui Mo turned and smiled slightly at a Gui. Then he moved his gaze to pull a Gui along deep inside. He was on full alert. The Yin energy was so heavy here, that there definitely would be many specters and Yin fiends. Unexpectedly, after going 20 li deep, they hadn't encountered a single Yin fiend. Such an unreasonable phenomenon caused Zui Mo's wariness to rise. Zui Mo pulled a Gui to inspect a range of 50 li and hadn't found a thing. Other than the unusually strong Yin power, there was nothing suspicious or dangerous. He did not continue to investigate. 50 li was enough to satisfy the requirements for setting up the King's Forbidden Firmament. More importantly, he didn't have the time to investigate further. The sky was starting to lighten. Zui Mo knew that those people in Buzhou City most likely had received the news of his escape. He had to effectively use his time. Zui Mo ignored the anxiousness he felt and started to set up the King's Forbidden Firmament. Zui Mo's guess was right. At dawn, the powerful factions at Buzhou City quickly received the information. Shocked, they quickly recognized the importance of this news. Yet the two Shen Power warriors that were fighting outside the city blocked the route off completely. Unless one was a martial or general expert, they would immediately die due to the lingering shockwaves of the collision between the two Shen Power warriors. Many factions had already tried. However, no one had managed to get through the area where the two were fighting alive. So Xiao Yunhai is Xiao Mo Gu. The news that Lu Han wanted to send back yesterday should be this. Ho Feng said gravely. He was a large figure, his limbs long, and there was a thick and broad sword on his back. Lei Yi's team is dead, Lu Han's team is dead. Bai Xiang's expression was grave and her tone low. She was Ho Feng's second in command. The two worked together on long-term missions and had good teamwork. I remember that the sect has information regarding Xiao Mo Gu. Ho Feng asked. Bei Xiang was familiar with all kinds of intelligence. She said without a hint of hesitation, yes, Xiao Mo Gu is one of our primary targets and our investigation of him has never stopped. Looking from the present information, Xiao Mo Gu is very likely to be Zuo. Ho Feng's brow creased. This name was unfamiliar. Zuo, a disciple of Wukong sword sect, an orphan that their sect leader took in. He lost his memory, and his origins are unknown. He is skilled in seal formations and ling farming. He was promoted from an outer sect disciple to inner sect disciple. His talent isn't bad. This is the earliest information we have found, Bei Xiang said smoothly. Wukong sword sect. Ho Feng's brow creased even deeper. I remember that all of Wukong's sword sect everyone except Wei Sheng should be dead. Because Sui Mo was sent to a remote location before the invasion of the Yao, he and Wukong's sword sect lost contact. Together with him are Gongsun Cha and one other disciple, Bei Xiang responded. Ho Feng changed expression. Gongsun Lil Miss. Yes. Bei Xiang nodded. Wukong sword sect really has many talented people. I still remember that there is a Wei Sheng, that one is also strong. Xue Dong greatly praised Gongsun Cha. I hadn't thought that he would also be from Wukong's sword sect. Yes, actually, we only found Xiao Mo Gu's true identity due to Gongsun Cha, Bei Xiang said. This means that Xiao Mo Gu and Xiao Yun Hai were his fake identities. Ho Feng's brow was creased. In other words, he knows Mo skills, Yao arts, and spells. Ancient power and Shen techniques. Bei Xiang added. His origins is highly likely to be related to that storm 26 years ago. Ho Feng's eyes suddenly lit up as he murmured, no wonder. Bei Xiang's expression suddenly changed. Something has happened to Xiao Li's team. Ho Feng's expression was slightly ugly and silent. Ever since the matter of Lin Qian fighting for the steel, managing Kun Lun's activity in the Mo territories started to become difficult. Almost all the Mo were secretly fighting against Kun Lun. This time, it was also true. If they were the least bit careless and their identity as Kun Lun was leaked, they would be attacked from all sides. They had traveled far to arrive here, and fighting on foreign territory, their losses had been heavy. The sword Xiu that had been sent this time to the Mo territories were all elite from the sect, almost all of them Fanshu. Such losses were ones that even Kun Lun couldn't shrug off. At this time, an extremely thin sword light appeared in front of Ho Feng. Ho Feng's reaction was quick. His hand beckoned and the sword light flew into his hand. The flying sword message of the sect. His expression showed joy. Return to the sect. Return to the sect. Bei Xiang stilled. The elders have come out of seclusion. Ho Feng's voice was low but the joy on his face could not be suppressed. Bei Xiang also had a joyous expression as she said excitedly, great. We also have Shen power warriors. Now we don't need to fear the Mo Shen temple. Ho Feng said proudly, our Kun Lun has led the Xiuzhou world for thousands of years. Can a little temple like the Mo Shen temple compare to the depth of our foundation? Then the angel device raiment. Bei Xiang said hesitantly. It is just a pseudo-Shen device, Ho Feng said with a smile. The sect has spent great time and energy and found some places that are possibly ancient ruins. The next step in the sect's plan is to go to these ruins to search for true Shen devices. Searching the Xiuzhou world, will we need to risk so much or waste so much effort? This is a good idea. I believe that there would be at least one or two Shen devices in so many ancient ruins. Bei Xiang was in agreement. Then she asked excitedly, then where have we been sent to? Return to the sect. Return to the sect. Bei Xian was puzzled. Ho Feng's smile could not be suppressed. We are in the second cohort to be taught Shen power. Once we return to the sect, we will start cultivating Shen power. Cultivate Shen power. Bei Xiang stilled, but then her eyes were full of longing. Ho Feng said, the era of Shen power is fated to be the era of Kunlun. The retreat of Kunlun was silent and didn't cause any waves. Other than those with good intelligence teams and those with high perceptiveness, everyone else was ignorant. Almost everyone's eyes were glued to the fight between the two Shen power warriors outside the city. Personally, seeing the fight between Shen power users was completely different than seeing it through mirages. The power as they moved which could destroy the world, a feeling of suffocation that never seemed to end. Each person felt they were so minuscule and insignificant like ants. Even martial experts had to remain alert to break free of such a terrifying feeling. There wasn't any land left untouched within 200 li of Buzhou City. The ground seemed to have been plowed over and over. It was possible to see fissures forming webs that curved and twisted for dozens of li. The land was completely fragmented. No one dared to charge in. Even Marshal D and the other three maintained their silence as the fighting between the two intensified. The astounding power turbulence was something that even they were wary of. If someone charged in now, they would most likely become the target of the two and would receive destructive attacks immediately. The two fought for a day and night without any hint of exhaustion. The young Emo god Yoshi Yaku was not surprising. What surprised people was that old man dressed in rags, of an unknown background, was an even match. But no matter who, if they saw this battle, they would make one conclusion. The power of Shen power was much stronger than those top Emo skills. Shen power would soon become the peak power once again. A new era had already started. If there had been many people who had recognized this point previously, then after this public battle of the Shen power experts, this point was driven deep into people's minds. Kuai An's expression was wary. He was astounded by the intense fighting that was happening in the distance. For the first time, he was filled with desire toward Shen power. He had cultivated to the martial level. It would be extremely difficult to take another step up. Other than the king level that only existed in the legends, martial level was the highest level that all Mo could reach. Ever since the first day he reached martial level, he was filled with confidence about his power. Yet the continuous appearances of Shen power warriors caused him to feel he was weak for the first time. He did not forget his duty. His gaze suddenly focused. Near the horizon on the opposite side of Buzhou City, several black dots suddenly appeared. There were people. Before he could give a warning, these little black dots grew large. They were so fast that they had appeared in front of him in a blink. These people were surrounding a beautiful female. Kuai An's gaze met the female's gaze. An unspeakable feeling suddenly rose. He was slightly dazed, but his reaction was quick. With a shake, he immediately became clear of it. Such a terrifying woman. When his gaze landed on the insignias on their clothing, his pupils immediately contracted and his expression changed. The Yao Council of Elders, that you're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.